First, we are going to start with our public hearing. If you're following along on the agenda, it is item 1B, the revision of expenditure budget presentation by Ms. Wendy Qualls.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President, members of the governing board, Superintendent Gunning. So tonight for you, I have a presentation on our revised number 2 expenditure budget. I'm Wendy Qualls, the Executive Director of Finance. This aligns with our strategic plan as far as finances and resources to increase our stakeholders' knowledge and understanding of school funding. Arizona revised statute requires any school district that exceeds the calculated amount for their budget that the Department of Education calculates to revise their budget on or before May 15th. Some of the main components of our budget are the average daily membership, weighted student counts, and our transportation information. So tonight I have a comparison that is tonight's recommended changes versus the adopted budget back in July, just to give you a better picture of what's happened through the entire school year. So the revised budget, number 2, is 9,916 students. We originally planned for 10,662. So a decline of 746 students. When we look at the weighted count, we decreased by 887 students. The base support level amount per student has stayed the same, and our bus mileage per student has stayed the same, also our daily route miles, because that is actually based on 2 years ago transportation mileage. When that information is put into our budget forms, we end up with a revenue control limit of $59.7 million. When we originally adopted our budget in July, we thought we'd have over 65 million. So it's a decrease of 5.4 million for the revenue control limit. The maintenance and operation override amount is based on prior year attendance. Therefore, that amount did not change during this period. The budget carry forward is higher by 1.6 million. We transfer money to the energy and water fund for lease payments. That amount stayed the same. We also transfer money to capital for our K-3 reading program to buy supplemental materials for curriculum. That increased by $6,755. Maintenance and operation budget is broken into 4 subsections: regular education, special education, transportation, and K-3 reading. The regular education budget revised amount is 57.7 million, a decline of about 3.6 million. Transportation also declined by 220,000, and the K-3 reading declined. Again, this is all related to the revenue decline for student enrollment. Therefore, we have to reduce our expenditures. Maintenance and operation is mainly used for salary and benefits. So with the revised 2 budget, 84.5% is estimated to be used on salary and benefits. It's about a 0.9% decrease from the adopted. We look at classroom spending, the percentage increases, and that's because I'm only looking at the maintenance and operation fund and how I anticipate that we will be using these funds. So it has increased to 61.7%, but we have to consider that the salaries and benefits that I moved from the maintenance and operation budget to federal funding will also count into this calculation at the end of the year. So I anticipate we'll be closer to the 60%, not the 61.7, since that is only considering maintenance and operations. Our unrestricted capital budget again, is based on our average daily membership, but from the prior year, there was just a slight change of 0.487 students. The amount of funding per student remained the same. So the district additional assistance increases $220 to 4.9 million. Budget carryover increases by 661,000. So the carryover amount is 11.8 million. Proposition 123 changed by $529. So that's just a recalculation by the state of allocating those funds statewide. Again, we have the transfer from maintenance and operations to capital that increased. And then our DAA reduction, which is one of the state's budget reductions to help balance the state budget. The reduction amount increased by $3,849. So in total, our capital outlay limit on this revised budget is $16,715,000. When we look at the expenditures, the main increase was in textbooks, library books, and instructional materials. This was due to the early implementation of the 6-8 curriculum. We had originally planned to have that go into effect for next school year, but since we were going to be online, we moved that up a year. So we increased those expenditures. Other funds that are in the budget are federal grants. From the adopted budget to the budget tonight, it's about 8.9 million increase. The majority of that is CARES funding or ESSER funding due to the pandemic. State grants are increasing about 206,000. Verado Elementary and Scott Libby Elementary qualify this year for results-based funding. So that is funding specifically for those two campuses. And then community education, with the pandemic and not being able to operate much of the year, their budgets decreased by 1.5 million. Do we have any questions?
Yes, I don't think, can you hear me? Wendy?
If you can talk a little louder.
Okay, yes. I have a question on the M&O piece. Since the salaries for our teachers and staff are based on the original budget and the now revised budget is a lower number, where is that difference coming from? Is it coming from our carry forward, our rainy day funds, or our federal grants?
So the majority of it's going to be in the federal grants. So you'll see the original governor's education stability grant. There was around $4 million of salaries moved into that grant or salary and benefits. So that's
Okay,
where
thank you.
most of it will be.
All the questions? Okay, great. Thank you, Wendy.
Thanks.
We appreciate it.
Thanks, Wendy.
I will move to adjourn the public hearing.
I will second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, our public hearing is adjourned. We'll move to, I call this meeting to order for our opening meeting. If you'll join me to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're happy to have a full house tonight. First, we are going to start with item 3A, which is our activity to commit. If you're not familiar with our conscious discipline program, I suggest you read up on it or come to our meetings before every regular governing board meeting. We have different activities that explore the theology of conscious discipline and those foundations that we teach our students in the classroom every day. So I am the board member that is responsible for our activity to commit today. And I just wanted to remind everyone, this is a commitment that is spoken out loud to help hold ourselves accountable throughout the meeting. The commitment I would like to suggest for this evening that we all make actually comes from our governing board norms. I commit to being an advocate and a champion of the school district and public education. If you agree and are ready to commit, please say, I commit.
I commit.
Thank you. All right, moving on to our activity to unite. And Jeremy, you're up with that.
Well, thank you. Good evening. Does my mic work good? Thank you. So unite means to come and bring together for a common purpose or action. What could be simpler than for the public, the school board, and the school district to come together to give the kids the best possible education? 21 public schools in Arizona have done this, and their achievement scores are over 90%. That's about where all schools were when I went to school. An American business set up offices in India, Bulgaria, Ireland, Costa Rica, and even Egypt to locate talent that no longer exists in the United States of
Sorry, this does not
America.
appear to be an activity to commit.
LASD cannot
Or
get above
unite.
57% proficiency. At 72 years old, I walked around in 110-degree heat and knocked on 1,000 doors.
This is not an activity
to get
to
on the school
unite,
board, to
Mr.
get the
Honak.
school to
Could you
teach.
please stick to the agenda?
Excuse me, I'm talking.
This is not an activity to
This is
unite.
an activity about unity. I'm trying to bring the community together and stop interrupting me.
That is not
I
what this
quickly
is.
found out
This is not an
Okay.
that
activity
their
to
only
unite.
goals are
Okay,
to implement
Can we just take a
radical
breath for a
left-wing
second, everyone?
agendas to
Just take a breath.
call chaos instead of teaching and sanctioning racism where there was none. So Board President Clymer, board members.
This is not an activity to unite. This is not an activity to unite. This is not an activity to unite. This is not an activity to unite.
Can we all just stop? Jeremy, can I ask you to stop for just a moment?
Let us all talk about getting our kids to learn reading, English, and math.
Okay,
Amen.
thank you. Okay, moving on. We are on item 4A, our recognitions and celebrations with Ms. Shelley Hornback.
Hello, hello. Good evening, everyone. President Clymer, members of the board, Superintendent Gunning, and distinguished guests, welcome everyone. It is my distinct pleasure every board meeting to begin with celebrations. We believe celebrations are so very important, especially when you do work like public education, because it's a tough job. So we need to slow down all the time and celebrate the small wins that are happening every single day in our classrooms and on our campuses. So today, we'd like to share with you a very brief slideshow to celebrate the Westside Impact Teachers of the Year. Please enjoy. Thank you so much. On behalf of every single staff member in this organization, we want to thank each and every one of you who is cheering on all of our hardworking teachers, the people who go into classrooms every single day and help children thrive at school and in life. Thank you so much for your support tonight and every day that you show us support. We truly appreciate it. I'd like to add that these are the teachers who are working very hard in a classroom, and on our school campus, we have principals who are devoting themselves daily to the campus environment, promoting a positive climate across their school family. These are far more than just colleagues. These are people who lock arm in arm and walk together every single day to do right by children. Our principals are heroes each and every day. We are so proud and so grateful for them. They wear so many hats. It's very difficult for the public to understand how many jobs a principal has. And we are a very lean staff across the board, top to bottom, bottom to up, right? They don't have a huge team to help them implement. They work very long hours. And that includes consoling a teacher who might be crying in their classroom because they've had a horrible day, consoling a parent who might be in their classroom because they could be upset about something. It's a big job, it's a tough job, and our principals also deserve our respect. I'd like to highlight 4 this evening because Superintendent Steve Watson from Maricopa County recently sent School Leaders of the Month awards to our superstar principal, Luke Jenke at Verado Elementary School. Please stand. To our Roadrunner principal at Scott Libby Elementary School, Corby Naylor. To our OWL principal right here at Litchfield Elementary School, Miss Sabina Hopper. And also our Rattler principal of Barbara B. Roby Elementary School, Miss Amanda Acosta. I speak with great confidence when I say that these 4 leaders share their awards with all of the principals in their Litchfield principal family. They work together as a team and as a family with their team, with our administrative offices, and with our community to make sure that we are achieving academic excellence all the time. So thank you so much to our hardworking staff and to all of those who support them. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. Moving on to item 4B, our maintenance and operation budget override presentation with Miss Wendy Qualls.
Thank you, President Clymer, members of the governing board, Superintendent Gunning. So tonight I'd like to start the discussion about our maintenance and operation budget override. This aligns with our strategic plan for student success to ensure there's ongoing funding to provide our district-wide student-centered focus. Under our people pillar, it helps us to recruit and continuously develop our high-quality employees, also to maintain our high retention rate of employees. As far as finances and resources, it does allow for a consistent funding stream for the override to assist with resources in our facilities. It also allows us to offer quality programs and extracurricular opportunities across all schools. So what is an override? An override allows districts to ask their local voters to exceed their maintenance and operation budget for up to 15%. Monies are used for salaries, benefits, and programs. An override has the initial term of 7 years. Districts often ask voters to reapprove or continue the override in year 4 or 5. That's because in year 6, the funding is decreased by 1/3. In year 7, it would be decreased by 2/3. In May of 1992 was the first time our voters approved an override, a 10% override for the district. Over the years, our community continued to approve our 10% override. In November of 2017, We asked to increase to a 15% override. And again, overwhelmingly, our voters approved for us to increase to 15%. So how will the funds be used? To recruit, retain effective teachers and staff, to maintain teacher and staff pay. When we had increased to the 15%, that additional 5% was dedicated to increasing pay for all employees. And so that pay would continue. Also to maintain a nurse at each campus and to maintain special area programs like our physical education, band, music, art. Maintain a focus on intervention programs. So we have reading specialists, instructional coach, behavioral coaches, student advisors. The funding would be there to continue those positions. And then also to maintain our athletics programs. So tonight we're going to discuss in general the override. We are going to share some polling results with you. And then later on the agenda, you will consider calling for an election. On August 4th, we'll be required to post special election notices throughout our district. On August 6th, pro and con arguments will be due, and that includes a pro statement from the board. The last day for new voters to register will be October 4th, and November 2nd will be the election day. The 2021 override amount is almost $10 million. The tax rate is 0.9988, with our assessed value being $999.7 million. So for next school year, I estimate that our override amount will be just under 9.4 million with a tax rate of 85 cents 0.09. And that is based on the $1.1 billion assessed value. When we look into 22-23, which will be what our voter pamphlet information would have, looking at $9,370,500. When you use our current assessed value, that's 0.8503. We know that that assessed value will increase. We just don't know how much it will increase. So I anticipate the tax rate would actually be lower than that. We did do joint pooling with Awafria Union High School District and continue the quality. If both boards do a call for elections, continue the quality will run both campaigns. And we use polling just to predict if voters will support to continue the override. Do we have any questions?
Any questions from the board?
I have one question. What is the overall cost to the district to call and run an election?
So based on our 2017 election, which was an off-cycle election, it was around $95,000 because we have to pay for the pamphlet, we pay for an attorney to review all the information. We have to pay for the mailing of the ballots, the printing of the ballots. At this point, it has not been determined if it's going to be an all mail-in ballot or not. That will be up to the county. So if it is all mail-in, it is more expensive because you have to pay postage both ways. But the cost will be split with Awafria as long as both boards would call. If only one calls, then the other district would have the burden of the entire amount.
Okay, anyone else? Great, thank you, Wendy. We appreciate it. Next, if you're following along on the agenda, item 4C are polling results, and I'm happy to call Mr. Paul Benz. Thank you for being here tonight, Paul. We appreciate it.
Madam Chairman, members of the board, thank you for having me here today. My name is Paul Benz. I'm the Senior Vice President of Research and Strategy at High Ground Public Affairs in Phoenix, Arizona. I have more than 2 decades of experience in doing public affairs and political research. I have more than 12 years when it comes to survey research. I'm here today because I'm committed to accurate, unbiased research to help you understand and make wise decisions when it comes to calling for an election. I do this type of survey research for school districts and for other entities throughout the West Valley and throughout the state And the goal is always the same, to give you helpful and good information that you can base decisions off of. So what I'm here today to talk a little bit about is the survey research that we conducted in conjunction with the Agua Fria School District. You did this wisely and were able to save taxpayer money by doing this together and look at multiple instances at once. We did this April 5th through the 7th. You have a 400 sample, which is a plus or minus of 4.9 with a 95% confidence interval. One of the things that we always make sure that we do is we look at who's going to show up in an election, not who we want to have show up. So what that means is in an off-cycle election, we're not going to see the same turnout that we just saw in 2020. It will be much lower turnout. Turnout in 2020 was about 79.9% turnout. We will see turnout somewhere in the 20 to 25% range. What that will mean is a large portion of our electorate will be over the age of 65. It will be more Republican than we would see in just regular voter registration. It will also be heavier in certain regions than others. We take all of that into account when we do our polling to ensure that we are giving you an accurate reflection of what the audience looks like. So as we go through this information, I'm going to share some warm-up questions that we do that sort of lays a baseline, getting people comfortable talking about education and where they think things are. Then we talk a little bit about awareness of the district and some things facing the district. Then we'll do a pre-test, which gives you the actual ballot language as a voter would see it on the ballot. And then we talk about some issues and programs that are part of a potential budget continuation. And then we do a post-test to see if voters move. And that gives you a certain amount of certainty. And we do this for districts all across the state to ensure that you have something likelihood of passage if you were to go to the ballot. So I do a couple of warm-up questions to start. As I said, first one we ask is, do you think K-12 education in the state of Arizona is headed in the right direction? And you can see only about 26% of the electorate believes that the education is headed in the right direction, compared to 52% who believe it's wrong. It's a little bit higher in Avondale and in Litchfield Park, a little bit lower in Buckeye. 26% of the local district thinks that state education is headed in the right direction. I think this is an important time to stop and just point out that only 33% of the audience is likely to have kids at home. That means 67% do not get the regular communications, don't have kids likely in our schools. They're most likely getting their information about education on the national level, on the state level, from Fox News and other places. That's why it's great to see so many folks here today getting direct information from here and from your local school board, because that's not typically where folks are getting their information about education. So bear that in mind as we talk about it. When you look locally, K-12 education in your area is a much higher number. You've got 39% headed in the right direction compared to basically 39% headed in the wrong direction. With 67% of folks not having kids at home, only 20% were honest and said they didn't really actually know. So what that means is the large majority of our electorate has an opinion about the direction of our education, despite maybe not having kids directly in the school district. It's right about the same in Litchfield at 38.5%. Again, a little bit more optimistic in Avondale and much more optimistic in the Litchfield Park area. It does speak to the long number of alumni and others that continue to live in Litchfield Park proper, because they do a good job of raising the numbers of the overall school district within the walls here and making sure people that use it as a good word of mouth. We did ask some questions about COVID to make sure that we understand that. One of the things that you'll note here is that more than 55% of the audience still believes that COVID is a crisis or a serious issue, compared to about 28% who think it's somewhat overblown or very overblown. That's a 3.4 on a scale of 1 to 5 if 1 was overblown and 5 was a crisis. So it tends towards a serious issue. That's why it's still great that you're taking all the precautions necessary that you're taking. You can see in Litchfield in particular, it was also 56% serious issue and crisis. So you'll see this in a minute when we talk about open-ended responses. The district and your voters are very well aware of what you have done to handle this about schools being open and some of the precautions and communications and steps. More than 2 to 1 people have a positive response to your COVID activities compared to a negative when it comes to online learning or schools being closed. We asked, how much have you seen, read, or heard about the Litchfield Elementary School District? And you can see about 30% a lot, 30% a little, 37% say they know nothing at all about the district. So that's a 60.3% awareness. which is about standard for what we see in an elementary school district. I will say several of the unified school districts in the West Valley have a slightly higher awareness because you're getting both elementary and high school together. So you have a longer spectrum of communication with those individuals. But 60% is about what we tested it. We did this survey, a similar survey, I should say, in 2017, and that's right around where the awareness was at the time as well. There's always things you can do to increase awareness when it comes to the district and continue to communication. But overall, it's a good starting point. It's a little bit higher than we saw on the Agua Fria side as well, or about the same. But it does let us talk to that 60%, say, oh, okay, what specifically have you seen, read, or heard? So the 241 respondents, we took their verbatim responses, which means we took down exactly what they said, and we categorized them. And anybody who wants to look at all 241 responses, happy to provide them too. It takes a little while to read through all of them, but I think a couple of really good pieces of news to bear in mind is that 9.5, your largest group of respondents, have a general positive impression or the fundamental belief that this is a good district, meaning the district they believe is headed in the right direction. The quality is good, and overall people think it's a good place to be. When you combine that with the 3.5% that specifically mentioned an A-rated district, you can see that is by far the biggest category that we have. I took A-rated district out because that's one of those things, when you see a particular phrase that stands out, that's a big deal to see that it pervades that well and that it is having good movement within the audience. So congratulations to you as a board for having that type of information out there. The A's on the buildings and the communications about that have worked very well. The next two highest categories is 5.2% who have friends and family who work in education, and 4.8 who are current or former students. So about another 10% or so of your audience are people that have direct relations or direct interactions with education on a regular basis. This is a great reminder to you, to the audience, to your staff and everybody else, that you have a built-in word of mouth network of individuals that can help spread the word about what's going on in the district and help talk about all the activities and things that are going on, more than even just sporting events or anything else, but really that what the goals and the mission of the district are as well. As I said, the next category there is 4.2 with COVID communications and next steps. The tier below that is 3.3% in the general negative impression. It's more of that statewide stuff that I was talking about. It's more of, we have bad schools, it's not great, I'd rather send my kids somewhere else. That's sort of that broad belief. And then you do have another 3.3 that have a concern with curriculum and subjects being taught. I think it's important to note that that 3.3 is talking specifically more about back to basics education, reading, writing, arithmetic. It's not something, a particular topic. It's just this idea that schools aren't teaching the things that they ought to be teaching. You have another 3.0 that communicate about schools being reopened. And then you have 3.0 that talked about online or hybrid concerns. When we did this in April, there's still a lot of folks that are concerned about kids learning behind a computer screen instead of behind a classroom. And then you've got the next tier is general awareness, concerns about the equity statement, which is about the same as the number of people who are just aware of the equity statement. You have awareness on the emails and online communications. And then you have 1% that I thought was really neat and interesting because I haven't seen this before, talking about the lunch program, specifically mentioning lunches. Usually we hear about, when you look at some of the COVID communications for other school districts, what we see a lot of is people understanding that schools are reopened or that schools got technology for kids. This is really the first district that we saw where we saw the lunch program get a specific mention as something that you were doing for the community. So that's really neat. And then you had another 3.5% that said all wide variety of things that were difficult to categorize. So then we asked job performance. So we did both job performance and a coronavirus performance, and you will see that a 39% give you an excellent or very good rating compared to about 11% that give you a poor or failing grade. That's a 3.49 on a scale of 1 to 5, which means the overall electorate gives you a very good job performance when it comes to offering education to the students in the community, despite the fact that you have 18% that are undecided with what's going on in education in the community. So there's still an opportunity for improvement there, where you can talk to those individuals and make sure they know all the steps that you're taking, the things that you're doing, because that would be incredibly well regarded. On coronavirus performance, there's still a little bit of work to be done. That's at a 3.2. It's closer to okay than very good, but you do have that 25%, about a quarter of your audience that don't know. What I told the staff and what I've told individuals is that means your work is not done. I know we sort of are over it and feel like maybe it's time to move on, but there's still a portion of the audience that doesn't really know how it was handled and what the results of it were. And so just even reminding people when the schools reopened, what the steps were being done, how the year was conducted, it's going to take some time beyond this year to make sure that that's accurately and adequately communicated, because there's still 1 in 4 of folks that are going to show up in November of 2021 if you decide to call for an election that don't have an answer to that question. So what we did is we tested the ballot language, and this is the actual ballot prescribed by statute that would be on the ballot. And one thing that I think is important to understand is that this is a continuation. This is a continuation of the tax that's been in place, because after 4 years, it starts to stair step down by a third. That's why we have to have a renewal like this if you want to keep the funding in place. There's prescriptive language that we are required to use if you go out for an election like this. So we test it directly to eliminate any bias and ensure that we know exactly what the individuals are looking at. And the great news here is when at a starting point of 64% yes compared to 28% no, and across the board age demographic support, including 65 and older. As I mentioned at the outset, 65 and older is about 36% of your overall electorate in an audience like this. So you want to make sure, especially since those are the folks not likely to have kids at home, to understand where they're coming from on a topic like this. And they're overall in support of continuing the budget that's in place. And part of the reason is because we tested all the override programs that are funded by the budget continuation. And the thing that we found, and for the sake of time, and I know you have a full agenda, I'll just go to the ranking of them. Recruiting and retaining effective teachers is by far and away the #1 issue. All of these items scored well above 3.5, which is what we like to see on these programs, 5 being a very important item. Near universal belief that we need to recruit and retain effective teachers. Same thing with nurse at every school and making sure that we are paying teachers and staff. Then you can see PE, band, and athletic and arts is sort of in a middle tier. Special area staff, coaches, and student advisors are in a tier. But the thing to bear in mind with all of these is they all score well above the mean, and every single one of these programs is well regarded by the electorate. So when you're going to invest in those with an override program like this, they know that those are quality investments that they are willing to continue at this point. So that's part of the benefit of listing out all of the various programs that you're going to fund, is that those are the ones that are funded, and those are the ones that are well regarded. The other thing we try to do with a survey like this is get an understanding of reasons people may vote yes and reasons may vote no. And so we get to the heart of the issue of talking about the district itself as an A-rated district. Are you supporting the district? Is that one of the reasons because it's A-rated and it's quality competitive education? And the answer is 57% strongly agree with that and give it a 4.40 score, which means it trends towards strongly agree. We also, another reason to invest is on the quality of life side, that voters tend to understand, and this is a growing sentiment, that investing in quality education protects your property values and reduces crime. I'm sure a lot of folks in this room, including me, moved to this district because we knew it had excellent schools that protect your property values. So those are 2 main reasons. We did test a couple of the other ones in the Agua Fria survey section as well. Another one that really, really stands out is growth. There is an acute awareness that growth is increasing within our community, and we need to invest in our schools to keep up with growth. Also, there's a benefit to this being not a tax increase. This is a continuation, not a tax increase, and I think it's important to note that voters respond incredibly well to that. On the other side, what we tested is fixed income. We hear this a lot, that folks live on a fixed income, taxes go up, they never go down, schools should live within their means. It's important to note that an override is a bit of a misnomer in that it is not actually, it's a revenue control limit set in the 1980s. And in order to exceed that, you have to get permission. It's not that something you did with your budget, as you know, but explain that's a challenge to the voters. But the fixed income folks, it's a 2.68, it's below the mean at 3, and only 22% strongly agree with that. Also, we were wanting to ensure that the reduced enrollment, which I know was just discussed previously, wasn't going to have an impact on this issue because of the pandemic. What we found is that overwhelmingly, there is not a pause, there is not a large sentiment that now is not the time to do this, because that when you look at the programs, they're more willing to invest in the programs, protect the quality of life, than be concerned about where the enrollment was. Most of these surveys, when we do this, I will tell you, go down in the post-test, not up. What we generally see is we want to see a budget item like this start in the mid to high 60s and end in the mid to high 50s to ensure that it has a chance of success. I'm not saying that today it's going to pass with 65% support. You know, that's what other things are for. But what I am saying is, if you choose to place this on the ballot, the polling shows that there's a viability, that it has a strong likelihood of passage among the electorate. It has more than a 2-to-1 ratio, including you've got basically 40% definitely yes compared to 15% definitely no. That's the type of number that we like to see in the definitely yes versus definitely no, to ensure that it has a strong likelihood of passage. And so we did test if Agua Fria decides to go out with their override as well. Electoral issues do intersect, and voters do pick and choose what they choose to vote for. So we always look for that as well. 62% said that they would likely support both. And then you had an additional 5% that wanted Litchfield and 5% that said Agua Fria. So that was pretty consistent. We didn't see a lot of fall off. There's not a lot of reduction if both issues are on the ballot, despite the fact that there's about an 80% overlap with that audience. So last thing we did is we've got a couple of demographics, so we could sort this, as we talked about, by kids at home. 33% kids at home compared to about 67% no. And more than 40% of this audience would consider themselves conservative. So that's, you know, basically in the state, it's about a third, a third, a third. Our community shifts more conservative. I'm sure we're all aware of that, but that's reflected in this data as well. And so with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Can I go ahead?
Sure, go ahead, Jeremy.
Questions. Is my mic on?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So the parents what percentage is that of the public, and what? That is a great question. So it does come down to if you're asking about an even numbered year versus an odd numbered year. And, you know, I think we all know that it is much more likely that an average citizen in the state of Arizona or in our community is more likely to have a kid at home. It's much closer to about 50-50 that I'd say, maybe even a little more likely to have kids at home. But what we're looking at here is in this type of audience and on a statewide level, it's about 30%. So generally, even in an even numbered year, we're looking about 70% or so of the Arizona electorate not having kids at home compared to only about 30% of the voters. So that means most of our education decisions are made by folks that don't have kids currently living with them. And so the ones that don't have kids, how are they likely to vote? They're likely to vote yes. If you look at this slide with the 65 and older, 62% are likely to vote yes in the post-test. So I think I did it. That's good. And then on the next question was the slide that said, what specifically have you seen? Yes. And so what I mean, so that's the general. So you can look at each of them and sort them based on the general thing. What we do is we take the general thesis of what their topic was. So those would add up to 241. Basically, no, they're out of the 400 sample. So it's that portion because they will add up to the 60% of people who have some sort of awareness. Yes, correct. They add up to 60%. Yes, because that's the audience of awareness. So I take the individuals. The reason I do that is you go apples to apples so that those 241 people, you don't extrapolate and say, oh, it's, it's 1%. And so suddenly it's 4 people instead of being a larger number. Correct. Yes. So that adds up to it. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Anyone else have questions or comments? Kim?
Yeah, I don't have any questions, but I want to say this information is extremely useful as someone who has worked on these campaigns for many, many years. I completely agree with what you said as far as this being a continuation, definitely is on our side this go around, as opposed to 2017 being an increase, which was a bit of an uphill battle for both districts. Have you spoken with folks at Agua Fria? Do you have any inside info for us on what they might be thinking?
I presented to their board last week after a very extensive retirement celebration. So I went home to eat dinner after that. So I have not gotten the word on how they responded to it, but they received the data well, particularly the not a tax increase portion of this.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Anyone else? I will echo the sentiments that this is, definitely good news for us. These are crucial dollars for us to continue paying our teachers and having some of the programs that we all really rely on in terms of academic excellence in this district. So thank you for the hard work. We really appreciate it. Thank you for sharing this opportunity with Agua Fria. I think it not only helps us financially, but it also helps us understand how we're both seen in the community and kind of our reputation and academics. So thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, moving on to our community opportunity for comment, 5A. I am going to read the disclaimer below and then we will get started. Pursuant to ARS 38-431, this agenda item provides an open call to the public, allowing individuals to address the governing board on any issue within the jurisdiction of the board. Items not listed on the agenda may be brought to the governing board's attention under this section of the agenda. Due to the Arizona open meeting law, the governing board cannot discuss or take any action on items not listed on the agenda. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Governing board members are not permitted to discuss or take legal action on matters raised during open call to the public unless the matters are properly noticed for discussion and legal action. The law permits board members to ask staff to review a matter or ask that a matter be put on a future agenda.
Excuse me, I just want to interrupt. I was informed that my microphone, I know I can hear it, it's on now, but I was told that people watching, it has been turned off, my microphone. They could not hear the rest of my Unity thing, and they could not hear my questions to Paul.
Okay. Our technology guys, it's not turned off. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. I believe we have 12 requests to speak. Our limit is 30 minutes, which would be 10 people, but we are going to squeeze in all 12 tonight if we can. So please be respectful of your fellow community members. And once your 3 minutes is up, allow them to come. What I'm going to do is I'm going to call the first name. Please make your way up to the podium. I will call the second name as an on deck. So just be ready and then you'll know that you are next up. First, and also please, as always, I apologize if I do not correctly pronounce your name. I will try very hard. First, we have Richard Gearhart, and on deck, we will have Lori Ortega.
My name is Richard Gerhardt and I live in Goodyear. I can empathize with you about your difficulty of this office, as I've also served on boards in Illinois and Ohio. I've reviewed your equity statement and I fully support your goal to empower all students to reach their highest potential, as well as access to all students. I also see in your future goals plans to reduce the disparity in discipline between groups. This has to be done so that you must develop programs and counseling to improve bad behavior. Lowering the standards of behavior for any group does not improve bad behavior, it normalizes it. You also plan to reduce the disparity in achievement between groups. Again, this has to be done with specialized instruction to give additional assistance to those who need it most. Certainly, we don't want to lower the achievement expectations, as that would degrade the value of a diploma from this district as to that of a participation trophy. Some school districts have gone off the rails, like the state of California, and they've just eliminated all honors classes because not a high enough percentage of certain groups could qualify. Dropping honors classes would stunt the academic potential for many students and could run afoul of the Arizona statute on gifted students. Eliminating honors classes would be creating a new academic ceiling. The mere mention of Abram Kendi and his teaching is troublesome. Kendi says capitalism is racist, and that's a self-evident fact. That is a Marxist dogma. He believes the only remedy for past discrimination is present and future discrimination. He has also said all whites are racist and racial discrimination against all whites is a positive social good. I believe you cannot neutralize racism by adding a new kind of racism to the system. The authors of the TEW have cleverly omitted the use of the term critical race theory because it's a political hot button. If you know anything about CRT, you recognize this TEW has its roots in CRT. We should teach our students that the content of their character is more important than the color of their skin or any other component of intersectionality. I strongly oppose any program from Kendi or any of his associates who want to reinforce stereotypes by race. To update an old saying, a woke in sheepskin is still a woke.
Thank you. Lori Ortega, you're next, and Lawrence Johnson, I believe you are on deck.
Madam President, members of the governing board, Superintendent Gunning, my name is Lori Ortega. I'm a resident of Goodyear within the Litchfield School District, and I vote. I'm rising tonight to voice my support of the equity and inclusion work this district has begun, and more importantly, that the district has recognized this work is well overdue. I think it is important in order for our school districts to grow academically, that they recognize their strengths and their weaknesses. I applaud the LESD board and administration for recognizing both. You have recognized that work needs to be done because the data shows that student achievement is lacking, and you're trying to do something about it. I applaud the fact that the board and district took on this uncomfortable and hard work. I have heard at these meetings that all students start on a level playing field and should all be given the same opportunities. However, I believe that is astonishingly incorrect. If all students began at the same place and with the same resources and the same attitudes from everyone in their district and their community, the equity work would not be controversial and would not be needed. Students enter the halls of their schools with more differences than similarities. They have distinctly different learning levels and abilities. They come from distinctly different socioeconomic backgrounds. There are trauma-based differences. Some are being raised by two parents, some by one, some by guardians. They have different resources, and I could go on and on with this list. I want to live in a community that cares about all students, a community with students that stay in the community when they graduate, and they make our neighborhoods smart and vibrant. A community that is willing to embrace all of our differences and similarities alike. I want my community to thrive. We will not thrive if we do not talk about equity. I hope the governing board continues this important work. While there have been some people, I'll call the squeaky wheels, saying that this work is unnecessary and unwanted, I believe there are more, although perhaps less vocal, who, like myself, asked the board, who began this work to continue it. Thank you.
Thank you. Lawrence Johnson, and we have Brenda Kilhofer on deck, please.
Everybody has asked the question, what shall we do with the Negro? I have had but one answer from the beginning. Do nothing with us. Your doing with us has already played the mischief with us. Do nothing with us. If the apples will not remain on the tree of their own strength, if they are worm-eaten at the core, if they are early ripe and disposed to fall, let them fall. I am not for tying and fastening them on the tree in any way except by nature's plan, and if they will not stay there, let them fall. If the Negro cannot stand on his own two legs, let him fall also. All I ask is give him a chance to stand on his own two legs. Let him alone, let him alone. Frederick Douglass, 1865. We hear a lot about TEW, CRT, CRC. If the central focus is RACE, it will not end well. It sounds good, and it may even feel good. Maybe some of you had not read the charter. I read the charter. And maybe some of you may not be old enough to remember what race was like, racial boundaries and racial battles were like in the 70s, but I was. I got to see how white boys and white girls are crying because they're being treated like they're racist. And I watch how Black boys and Black girls are being pushed in positions that they can't hold because they simply did not earn the position. I've watched that. I've watched how we set this up again, and we have not learned. We have not learned that you cannot put someone in a position that they have not earned. We have not learned that you cannot make someone feel oppressed about something that they have no charge or no control over. What we're setting up is a race. This is what we're doing. We're setting up a race in which if you are white, then you cannot win. Don't even participate because you don't get a shot. But if you're Black, you already won. That is not good for children. That is not good for America. And that is not good for people. That is disparaging at the onset. You probably wonder, am I a parent of these kids? I'm not. I'm not a parent. I'm not a godparent or grandparent here. I'm simply a concerned American.
Thank you. Linda Krohofer, you're up. Charles Clark, you are on deck. Charles Clark. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
President Clymer, Supervisor Gunning, board members, thank you once again for allowing me to speak. I really believe that there's a lot of misinformation and confusion about what those of us parents that are against this equity work stand for. Personally, I can speak for myself, and I know that there are many of these wonderful women that I've gotten to know that I didn't know before now. I know that they absolutely care about every single one of your children. This is not about not giving support and help for those with learning disabilities. It's not, we are not against kids that need support and help in other ways. We are against the racialization that occurs with the resources that have been included in the TEW, and we have come to coffee talks. And you know what? I left with so much hope, believing, and I even asked Supervisor Gunning that you put something in writing, because it was said that, no, we're not going to use those websites that are on the TEW. We're not going to use that critical race theory type of training that's there. None of that will enter the classroom. And then we went and looked as parents at the Conscious Discipline website to find a section of 21 anti-racist videos, including those narrated by Ibram Kendi or made by Ibram Kendi. So what did that told us? That crud, it's already in the schools because conscious discipline is there. Board, we have sent you emails. We've asked for responses. We've gotten some. We said in the first meeting that this would divide, that this type of training would divide. I ask you to just look around the community. Look at this board. Look at the argument that ensued at the beginning of this meeting. You guys are divided. You're fighting against one another. This community is divided and fighting against one another, when I know that on both sides of this, we all want what's best for our children. But you know what our children are seeing? Our children are seeing the other side rip me to shreds on social media and call me a racist. My daughter was defended by a friend today who got suspended because she was called a racist in her high school. This work has caused the division. Using CRT is tearing the very fiber that Litchfield Elementary School District was built on. I've been an agent in this West Valley for 17 years, and this district has always been the most sought after district for people coming to buy homes in the West Valley. And it's being torn at the seams because we want to stand for a politicized agenda when it comes to this training. Let's give every student what they need to succeed. And I've read Ibram Kendi's, I'm still reading it. I haven't read all of it. And there's a story that he tells in there about how he felt that it wasn't fair, that a young girl was being mistreated for being Black. He vocalized that to the principal. The teacher didn't catch it, and he stood his ground, but the principal did sit down and ask, and he used words like, it's not fair, this isn't fair, and the problem was solved. We need to handle problems as they occur, but we're creating problems
Thank you,
here.
Ms. Kilhoffer. Your time
Thank
is
you.
up. We
I
appreciate it.
apologize.
Thank you. Mr. Clark, Elaine Weathersby, you are on deck.
Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I've been accused of many things, but being radical or left has never been one of them. My parents were Republican. My family was Republican. I am from a deeply Republican district, and I came from a very Republican state. Everybody in my family is a teacher with the exception of me, which is probably why they don't talk to me any longer. But I'm here to say that I agree with this equity statement. I have used phrases like I don't see color and I'm colorblind, but they're a fallacy. They don't, it's not true. Deep in our psyches, there is a bias. We all have it. It's just a fact. So what does that mean? That's fine. It's fine.
Please,
If you don't
please stay
wanna-
quiet and give him his time, please.
But so what do? What is the solution? Vigilance. Vigilance is the solution. And that is what the equity document is. It's vigilance. We just listened to an individual talk to us about numbers that told us what the voter thinks. Those are great. Those are percentages. But guess what? In that equity document are numbers. And they're even better than those because those numbers in that equity document, there's no issues with conformity bias in those numbers. It's a fact. It is a fact that there is 5% of the student body receive 19% of the suspensions. That is a fact. You can't argue that. So what does that mean? It means vigilance. Yehuda Bauer was a Holocaust scholar, and he said we should add 3 commandments to the Old Testament. He said we should say, thou shalt never be a perpetrator, thou shalt never be a victim, and thou shalt never, ever be a bystander. And that's what I refuse to do. I refuse to be a bystander because this document is good. What it's doing is right. And we can argue that. We can say taking action in itself is racist. That is a fallacy. How do you fix it if you don't do something about it? That is just an excuse to do nothing. It is an excuse for inaction. It is an excuse for ignorance. If your concern is about the curriculum and the teachers, then I ask you, think about it. I came from a southern Texas town of 5,400 people. I thought it was diverse because I was the only redheaded Irish kid in 5,400 people. Then I went to the Navy. Guess what? I woke up. I had no idea what diversity was. And then I went to college and I woke up again because diversity is a significant topic. You cannot allow your children, our children, to go out into the world and not understand that, not understand the people that are around them of every race, every color, every ethnicity, because it exists. It is true. And I'm going to be honest with you. I had my last paragraph and it's full of vitriol and anger, and I've heard enough of it today and it's filled this boardroom. So I'm going to say one thing. Behind you is a sign. It says you matter. It does not say you matter if. It doesn't say you matter if your parents are involved. It doesn't say you matter if you read at a certain level. It says you matter because that is the mission of this school district. And that is the mission I want my child to be a part of. And that is the mission I fight for and pay taxes for every child. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Weathersby is up next. On deck, Leanne Migray. Okay, I apologize if I mispronounced your last name.
Hello, everyone. Superintendent Gunning, Madam President, members of the board, members of the staff, members of the community. Girls, it is nice to see you. Dr. Armstead, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you in my seat. It's clearly yours now, but I think we can say that. Mr. Honak, good evening.
Thank you.
I would like to start off with a quick shout out to the impact teachers, those that I personally know, Elizabeth Warren, Amber Gant, and Jen Glather, right on. Congratulations. I have only 3 minutes, so this is gonna go fast. Wow, what a mess we have here. I cannot imagine how hard this is for you or for any of you, or really for all of you. It's a mess. For those of you who have not heard, a recall effort is underway for Kimberly Moran and Melissa Zeidema. These actions are done so based on a pack of lies surrounding critical race theory and the belief that LASD will be including critical race theory in its curriculum. This is not true. I don't want you to worry about this. I cannot imagine this going all the way to the election, but what I can tell you is that the community that supports you is far larger than the community that is being led astray. Melissa, your actions have always been professional, and the political agenda that the other side is saying you are spouting is simply not true. As a matter of fact, most of what I've heard you say is being echoed by Dr. Armstead, and everybody seems to really like you, so I'm very confused on that. Kim, your devotion to the district has never been a question. I am proud to have served with you both, and I know your intentions will always be what is best for students. I watched a woman on Facebook this week do a live post disqualifying the work of the district and said point blank that Litchfield right now is teaching critical race theory. This is not true. This comes from one of the candidates who is running for the seat that you are being recalled for, or possibly. And after seeing that, I could no longer stay silent. You are being bamboozled. It would help if the district could get some of the request forms out. I know personally I have been waiting for 8 weeks for requests for records. I believe that inside of those requests, people would see the truth. I want to go on record that what is wrong with wanting more diversity in our district? If our intent is to do best for what is for students, then it seems to me seeing a more diverse staff would be a good thing. Now, don't get me wrong, that does not mean that we would choose color or race or gender over qualifications. But diversity is what has made this country great. And diversity in a community is what makes a community. Jody, I have said this before and I will say it again, your staff is behind you. This is clearly going to get harder from here, so you need to be prepared. Mr. Honak, you have accused the board of secret meetings last year. That is not true. I was part of that. There were no secret meetings.
Thank you, Elaine.
I'm not sure if you know what you were doing. I'm sorry, I'll take one more second. I want to say one more time that critical race theory is not happening here. I can tell you from experience, I came to the board with an agenda, but my most aha moment was when Kim said, what we do here is only for what is best for students. Mr. Honak, this is not your stage. And June 30th is right around the corner.
Thank you, Elaine.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it. Thank you. Leanne, you're up. Mary Kay, you are on deck. Please go ahead and start. You're good.
Sorry. My name is Leanne Mygrade. Thank you for having me here today. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak. I am very nervous. I only speak to 6-year-olds. I would like to address not only the board, but every member of our district, whether you're here or watching. Unfortunately, many people are here tonight and online for a fight. You're passionate about what you believe, and great, but pay attention. I urge every one of you to consider who we really serve, the children. Regardless of what is discussed here tonight, regardless of who yells the loudest, regardless of who has the best soundbite or the best zinger. Tomorrow morning, in less than 12 hours, I will be right back here on this campus welcoming children with a smile. I got off topic, sorry. Just like I have been doing for the last 172 school days. Some of our students come in with their mother's kiss still fresh on their forehead. Their homework is complete, their school supplies are ready, nutritious lunch packed in their bag, and they're ready to learn. Some of them are processing trauma. Maybe happened that morning. They haven't had food since lunch yesterday when they were here in this cafeteria on the seat you're sitting in. Whoever or whatever is said or yelled tonight, it doesn't change the fact that I am welcoming children into my classroom tomorrow. It's my job to help those very children meet our Arizona state standards. We do everything in our power to help students reach that goal. I am not a robot. I do not program robots. I teach tiny humans with brains that are still developing. Very little is predictable. When we meet them where they are, take time to meet their physiological and emotional needs, provide a safe space to make mistakes, and deliver a rich, rigorous learning environment, they learn and grow. In my classroom, all are welcomed and loved and educated. I spend time with them. I determine what they need to be successful. Maybe it's food, maybe it's a safe place. Maybe they need some emotional support. Maybe they just need a hug before they can even begin to master any standards. Some of them need additional exposure to concepts. We do small groups. Some of them need specialized intervention. Some need opportunities to extend that learning. I give them what they need at my own cost, my time, my money, my heart. I am a professional educator with an advanced degree and years of experience, and I like that respect that should come with it. I've heard the word indoctrination thrown around and even a comparison to Nazis. These are serious accusations. In the hardest year we've ever had as teachers, the last thing we needed was to hear so many demeaning and insulting and belittling things. We did not need to have a board member call us names in a public forum to belittle the work that I do every single day. I did not need to see my district smeared across the news saying that we are failing. If you are not here for our children, please excuse yourself. If you are not here for all of our children, I am not picking a side right now. I'm saying, if you are not here for the children, and this goes for everybody, step out of my way. I have children to educate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mary Kay, you're up next. Claudia Acton. Claudia Acton, you are on deck.
Good evening, board members. Before I begin this evening, I just wanted to thank all of you for your service. I've sat in that seat and I know how hard that work is. And I know how hard you work to make sure that everything that is happening in the district is happening for the good of all children. The nice thing about being old is that you remember the history of how equity work began. And so let's go back to No Child Left Behind and George Bush. It was George Bush and Jeb Bush who turned around schools in Florida and brought that to a national level. And what No Child Left Behind did was made each one of us as educators, principals, school districts, look at every single category in our school district and see how it was doing. How are the girls doing? How are the boys doing? How is special ed doing? How are Black students doing? How are brown students doing? On and on and on. You get the drift. The message clearly from the federal government through the Department of Education, started by George and Jeb Bush, was you are responsible for every single child in your school district and their success. So why equity? That's why equity. Equity makes you look at how each one of those students are doing. Somewhere along the line, somebody, be it administrator or school board, found something in Litchfield School District that didn't feel right. And you did a data dive. Thank you. This is a science of education. And in that data dive, you isolated some areas where you had an opportunity to make a change and make growth for a group of students. And you began your work. And this happened. And now the work is stopped. Not stop. Because if you stop, I have this question. Which one of those children that you're responsible for is okay for you to leave behind? My answer as an educator of 31 years is none of them. You can do this work. I'm counting on you to do this work. You are my community. I voted for you. You need to carry it forward because we can't afford to leave anybody behind. Thank you.
Thank you. Claudia, we have Brenda Kilhofer. Are you set to come back twice? Okay, I apologize. Kathy Swap, you are on deck. Brenda, my apologies. I didn't mean to call you out.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the governing board. My name is Claudia Acton, and I am the mother of a Western Sky student. I am here today to speak in favor of the district's equity statement and in support of diversity, equity, and inclusion work LASD is doing. Every time I hear parents and even a board member disparage and misrepresent diversity, equity, and inclusion, my heart breaks. When I hear the higher discipline rate of Black youth in the district attributed to the notion that they demonstrate more inappropriate behavior that leads to discipline, my heart breaks. Research shows that Black middle and high school boys are more likely to be seen as troublemakers than their white peers for the exact same behavior. Targeting disproportionality in discipline and in academic achievement benefits all students. My son and your son and daughters will benefit when teachers apply innovative strategies to reach and teach from all circumstances and backgrounds. When you close your eyes, your ears, and your hearts to the struggle of others, you become a part of the problem. Conscious discipline teaches our children to have a growth mindset, to be open to learn even when it hurts your brain. Of course, I'm paraphrasing. You personally don't have to take the blame for inequality. You don't have to feel guilt or shame about it. But once the data are clear, and believe me, the data are clear, you must address it. This is honorable work by LASD, and this work needs to continue to help all of our students succeed. I urge the board to promote DEI efforts and not to back down in the face of uninformed adversity. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mrs. Swap, thank you. And last, we have Allison Atkins on deck. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mrs. Swap.
Okay. Hi, my name is Kathy Swap, and I thank you for this opportunity to speak. Now, I've been a Litchfield Park tax-paying homeowner for 24 years, and my kids graduated from this school and from Western Sky Middle School. Now, I've been reading your equity statement of December 8, 2020, and to have a better understanding of your purpose and vision. And it is so important to clarify these definitions, and I intend on paying more attention to how these terms are explained and applied. But one term, anti-racist, is what I want to focus on right now. You subscribe to Ibram X. Kendi's definition, which is then, I believe, an endorsement of his views. And in your letter of April 23rd, 2021, you stress that you are not adopting critical race theory or the 1619 Project. I was glad to read that. However, beware. Ibram Kendi is a strong proponent of critical race theory, and a statement by him should concern you and wave a red flag. Quote, in order to truly be anti-racist, you also have to be truly anti-capitalist. This is Marxism leading to communism. Ibram Kendi's brand of anti-racism brings on more division and incites violence. And this is not a step forward to better education and goodwill. I don't believe he's a good influence. Why not heed Dr. Martin Luther King's words? Quote, I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character, unquote. And also Dr. Ben Carson, a very wise neurosurgeon. Quote, we the American people are not each other's enemies. The enemies are those people behind the curtain jerking everybody's chains and trying to divide us up by age, by race, and by income. Therefore, I urge you to stay focused on academic excellence of teaching the skills of reading, writing, math, science, civics, and true history. Stick to the basics and don't try to create a community in which you then try to control every facet. And I believe that's what the whole thing is about, is control. So, and it becomes a Pandora's box. And that's out. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Atkins, you're up. Thank you.
Is it on? Okay. I wasn't sure how that worked. Should I start?
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Allison Atkins. I am an educator, community member, and parent to 3 children in the district. I am here to support the district's equity work and provide comment on the recent study session regarding the district's equity plan as President Clymer requested. I am in full support of the work the district has done to ensure equitable policies, programs, and practices that support the district's mission to connect, educate, and empower our LESD family and community that should result in favorable outcomes and increased achievement for all students. In fact, this is in line with the work that the recent 2020 Arizona Gallup survey has identified and suggested at a state level to address systemic racism as a key issue for the future success of the state. The full report can be downloaded from the Center for the Future of Arizona's website, for those of you who like data. Additionally, the survey found that 79% of Arizonans believe action is needed to close gaps in educational outcomes for our most vulnerable populations of children who are low income, have disabilities, and or are English language learners. At the last study session, I was disappointed to hear language around if there was an equity plan. I understand that there has been feedback regarding the work that the district has done over the past year, and there's discussion about how divisive it has been. However, it was not divisive until Jeremy Honak and outside organizations took a vested interest in disrupting our community. I implore the board and district to take a more visible stand for this work and demonstrate the courage that this work demands to ensure that all members of our LESD family and communities, race, culture, gender, ability, religion, sexual orientation, and other aspects of identity are affirmed, welcomed, and appreciated. If the district can adamantly refute that they are not teaching the 1619 project curriculum in critical race theory, as was done in a recent email, they should also be able to adamantly oppose the other lies and disinformation that is being spread. Additionally, I find it perplexing that during the study session, both the facilitators of the conversation and members of the board in the district communicated that they are not experts in the field of equity, which is totally understandable. However, how will the plan to solicit community feedback regarding equity be reliable if there is not at least one person who is an expert in equity guiding the conversation? I urge the district to also engage and include people who are experienced in the field and can help guide the work that is so important to the growth and the future of this district. As this is not new information, this is not a trend. This is happening across the country, and it's having positive effects for students. And that's, I know we are all here for. So, and thank you. I support your work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That concludes our public comment. Thank you for being patient. We went a few minutes over, but because we only had two extra people, thank you for being patient and letting everyone speak tonight. I do appreciate it.
President Clymer,
Yes.
I would like to take this opportunity, as is approved in open meeting law, to correct or respond to any criticism that is
Sure.
objected to the governing board.
Okay. Before you speak, I just want to remind you that to address only the comments made on public comment. If it's not on the agenda, we cannot discuss or take any action.
Agreed. There
But-
are four
but by law,
statements that I would like. I'm sorry, Mr. Honak?
If you're responding to a criticism, I just want to state that I need to also, and I want to assert that
Okay.
right.
That is your right.
You will have your turn, Jeremy.
There were four statements that were made that I would like to provide additional facts regarding from the public comment tonight. The first fact is that reducing disparities between demographic groups in discipline and achievement does not mean we are lowering the bar. We are simply trying to figure out why the disparities exist and bring all students to higher achievement. The second fact is that we have no plans to reduce or eliminate our honors or traditional academy programs that offer more rigor to our students and meet some of our students' needs. The third fact is that conscious discipline has proven to be one of the best programs that has ever been implemented in this district to improve student success. In the Litchfield district, we care about the whole child, which includes their social and emotional well-being. The last fact I would like to offer up is that using a definition does not mean that we as a district agree with everything a person has stated or published. To infer such is a massive misstatement and incorrect conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Jeremy, the floor is yours.
My criticism is that I have been accused of insulting teachers, lying, and lying again. I never insulted a teacher. I hold teachers in the highest regard. We were talking about opening schools, and I said the public perception, people that have lost their jobs, lost their businesses, was the public perception was that teachers, by not wanting to go back to school after they were vaccinated, et cetera, the public perception, not mine, was that they were prima donnas. And that is what I heard from the public. And I was trying to protect teachers because there is going to be a bond coming up. So whether you like that or believe it or not, but go back and listen to the video, that is what I said. Secondly, the next lie that I sent out an email or communicated on Fox News or whatever, that they were teaching CRT. I never said that. I said that the TEW, the transformational equity work, gives teachers and encourages the teachers, the Diversity Empowerment Committee encourages teachers to modify, adapt, et cetera, the curriculum to do cultural this and that and whatever, which to any person with a lick of common sense means they could teach CRT 1619 or whatever. I did not say they were doing it. I said that they were setting up a situation with the TEW where they could. Anybody with a knowledge of English reading that can see that. The third lie was that I said that they were saying that I was lying about things being hidden. Number one, I watched very carefully December 1st, and this is all documented. The members over here, not Miss Armstead, but the other three over there even had discussion about the fact that Ms. Idema said, gee, has the public gotten any feedback from the public? No, from Daniel Clymer, no, from Kim Moran. When December 8th, the vote came up and we see it, they showed it on a screen, the full equity document with type that I could not see. And when she got to the bottom with the definitions, she said, oh, they're definitions, and skipped out Ibram Kendi, left that out, okay? Now, the zinger of it all is the transformational equity work. They hid it. They put it on, I first saw it when it was posted on board docs for school board members only. I understand that it was on there for about a week, that some people said they could see it, and then it was taken down. It was removed. If it's so wonderful, why was it hidden? But that was a total lie, besmirching my character, saying that I lied when in fact they were hiding it. So I did not insult teachers. I've sat here very patiently. I support teachers, and I was trying to support you then when the public was very unhappy with you teachers. And we did get the school board open in that meeting. As to my saying that the CRT was being taught, I never said that. I said that they passed something where they could teach it. And there may be a problem with people understanding English, which is really bad for teachers. Okay, and then the third one is about hiding stuff, which 100% they are doing. They still are. I mean, it got out there, but not because they put it out. Thank you very much.
Let's move on.
And also, I'll just say one other thing. I'm sorry. I have been called a pedophile. I've been called whatever. I have kids that have gone
Jeremy.
through, my kids have excelled. I'm a parent. I am so supportive of whatever. And the people that have gone here, one of them out here, her
Jeremy.
husband has, you know.
Jeremy, let's move on.
these
This was
people
not
have
in
been
response to
despicable
the public
in the
comment.
names they've called me.
This was not in response to public comment. Let's move on. Item 6A is our consent agenda. I will open questions or comments on the consent agenda.
I would like to have the, if I'm in the right spot here, the meeting minutes from that where we had the facilitators. There were several omissions which I have set to be added. If they're added if they are added right now, then we can leave it in the consent. If they're not added, then I would like them added.
Okay. I am in disagreement. I do not feel like the addendum accurately represents what took place in the meeting, so I am not in favor of that. If you'd like to pull it off, we can certainly do that. Otherwise, we can have the conversation during this time.
Well, then let's.
I believe the addendum is included in item 7D, and I would like to remove 7D from the consent agenda.
Okay.
So can I make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Melissa, I'm sorry, just speak up just a little bit so that we can make sure everyone hears you.
Can I make a motion to approve the consent?
No,
agenda?
because I have something that I want to say about it.
Excuse me, she is in the middle of making a motion. She has the floor. Go ahead, Melissa. Melissa, please proceed.
I want to make comments on what was omitted from the agenda before we vote.
We're not
Okay.
voting. She's in the middle of making a motion. We're not
You would
voting.
allow me to make my motion? You will.
No, because you're going to
understand.
go ahead and vote and cut me off
No,
like you
I'm
did on
not.
March 3rd.
Could you allow me to speak, please? I would like to make a motion that we approve the consent agenda minus 7D.
I will second.
There is a motion and a second on the floor to approve the consent agenda minus item 7D. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, we are going to address item 7D, approval of minutes of session from April 27th, 2021.
Thank you, and I apologize. I misunderstood the motion, and that was my bad.
The floor is now open, Jeremy, if you'd like to make a comment.
Thank you. So in the in that meeting, it was agreed that all equity implementation would cease until a new consensus of the board is reached, except for fact finding. For the video, Jeremy and Tara agreed that everything, including administration and implementation of the TEW, should be at a standstill. That was Dr. Armstead's words, no matter how long it is until a consensus is reached.
That is incorrect.
At 20, excuse me, at 20.
Please do not include my name.
Okay, I'm just going to go by reading the transcript. At 2 hours, 19 minutes, 15 seconds, I said, I'm not talking about the equity statement. I am talking about what is going on in the school system about its implementation. At a little while later, at 2 hours, 20 minutes and 10 seconds, Dr. Armstead said, I quote, agree with Jeremy that everyone
Can you
should stay
please
at
speak
a
for
standstill.
yourself and keep my name out of your mouth professionally.
Excuse me. Excuse me, I am.
Not put
You know
my
what? I'm
name.
talking right now. I have the
Do
floor.
not put my name in alignment with you.
I am reading the transcript
And I am
of your
being
words.
professional in asking you to keep my name out.
Okay,
of your
a
mouth.
person sitting next to me who doesn't
Do
want their name
not
used
Put me in alignment with
said,
you.
I agree with
Jeremy,
Jeremy.
we can
You're
read,
so
we
full
can
of
read
hate.
your comments here. So if there's comments other
I'm
than what
reading
you.
I'm reading the transcript to say
I
the minutes
understand,
should
but
represent it.
we have it in front of us. We can read the comments. So if there's
Wow,
additional
wow, wow. You
comments.
know, there's no rules in the board at all. When I'm talking, everybody talks over and cuts me off.
I'm trying to
The
move our meeting
transcript
along.
says everyone should stay at a standstill until we get these questions answered. Superintendent Gutting concurred, stating at 2 hours, 22 minutes and 10 seconds, we have to solidify our goals and have that clarity and understanding and community input. So we have a lot of people we still need to talk to, which in the context was saying it was going to be about getting input and asking questions from the community. And the record shows that Superintendent Gunning is nodding that was correct. And then I said at 2 hours, 22 minutes, 25 seconds, okay, so you are basically not implementing your fact finding. All I wanted to know, that was the final comment on this subject. So again, I'm wanting to add to the minutes that it was agreed that the equity implementation would cease until a new consensus was come to, which after all, the equity statement was put back on the agenda for some reason. Secondly, questions for the public shall be formulated by Moran and Honak. Other questions directed to the board district can be directly passed to them. So specifically, at the end of the slides that they had, what the facilitators presented said that Board Member Moran and myself were the two people that were supposed to be developing the questions to the public. Ms. Moran had another view that we were developing, I don't know, 20, 30 questions or whatever. So hopes, concerns, questions were formulated in the study session. The questions were not identified to whom they were directed. At 2 hours, 15 minutes, 20 seconds, Board President Clymer said, and could we, I suggest, I mean, some of these questions are for the board. Some of these are for district administration. Some of these are in fact for our families, you know, public community, things like that. So, and then 10 seconds later, as we break down those questions, can be developed for the public and go through that process. The other ones, meaning the other questions, can just be brought back to the specific people who would be able to answer them. This is not complex. All I'm saying is that what I believe Board Member Kimberly Moran and myself are to do is to come up with questions for the public so that a survey of some form could be done, which was to be decided by other board members, that methodology.
Okay, I will open up the floor for other comments or questions.
So my first comment is when you said it was decided at our study session that we wouldn't keep moving forward, we can't make any decisions at a study session as no action can be taken at a study session. The only way that action can be taken is at a general board meeting or a special meeting. So that is incorrect. No decisions were made that night. Also, I asked twice if the questions you guys were coming up with were the specific questions for the community, which they said they were not.
So how did we come up with the decision that Kimberly Moran and myself were to develop the questions? And I'm not sure which other two members were supposed to come up with the methodology. How did we make that decision? How did we even decide? We had a study session and we decided to form little subcommittees. And we had a big discussion about, I brought up the fact, well, it sounds like you want, when everybody was signing up, we'd have a quorum, we'd have to have a meeting open to the public.
Okay, but we didn't vote on
And-
that. So the fact of the
So
matter
we did-
is
we
that
did
it was
make some
not,
decisions.
the
Not
fact of
board
the-
action, but we decided the methodology of how we're developing these
the
questions.
fact of the matter is that it was not agreed that equity work would be at a standstill. The board has a directive that was approved on December 8th. That stands as Litchfield Elementary School District guidance and will stand unless or until that statement is rescinded.
Well, then what weight does Superintendent Gunning in here, who just nodded a moment ago, agreeing that it had shifted into fact finding rather than going around and.
Well, you're talking
doing
about two
training
different
and
things,
like
Jeremy.
that.
You're talking about the equity statement and the transformational equity work document. Those are two different things. The board is responsible for the equity statement and Superintendent Gunning is responsible for the other work. Superintendent Gunning does not have the ability to ask us to
I
stop
understand, and
working on the equity
that's what I
statement.
was talking about. I said it very clearly. I should read it again. I'm
I don't
not
need you to
talking
read it
about
again.
the
We heard
equity
you.
statement. I'm talking about what's going on in the school system. And so the TEW, that's what I was talking about. So
Yes, and
we're
she's
all in
still
agreement, I
continuing
guess.
to collect information and provide information to the public and get feedback and work on the goals. That is work that is still continuing to happen. Okay,
Okay.
are there any questions or I will entertain a motion to move on?
I motion to approve the minutes from the study session as originally presented without Jeremy's addendum.
I will second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Yes, I'm opposed, and that defies what is actually on the public record on the video. So there you go.
Thank you. Motion carries. Moving on, if you're following on the agenda to item 8A, approval of proposed boundary revisions for Belen Soto Elementary School that we are adjusting area 36C. Tommy, thank you for joining us this evening.
I'll just break everything before I leave. Good evening, Governing Board President, members of the Governing Board, Superintendent Gunning. I come to you.
I'm sorry, that's not a funny joke, Tommy. That's not funny at all. For those of you that don't know, Tommy is leaving us at the end of the school year, and some of us have not completely come to terms with that decision. So there's no funny going on there. So I apologize for interrupting. Go ahead, Tommy.
My apologies, Board President. Members of the Governing Board, I came to you in October as a representative from the committee for the district where we talk about growth, our growth committee, and making adjustments to boundaries. In October, we discussed boundaries for Belen Soto to move some areas to Scott Libby, Verado Elementary, and Verado Middle School. In February, we came back and discussed a little bit of what needed to happen again to move forward. And then in April, I came and presented to you of an area 36C, which is on the northwest corner of North Perryville Road and West Indian School Road, which is Fulton, enclave by Fulton Estates. The plot map that was received in February is different than what we originally planned. It is actually larger. So last month I came to you presenting just a change in moving that area up. Tonight I come to just propose the approval of that change that we discussed last month. We did send letters home to the homes and residences that were going to be affected by this. Amy Potapov is amazing, got those out right away for us. And we sent 4 letters total, I believe, and 3 came back. And 2 days after we mailed the letters, as I was en route, those 3 residences were torn down, as the entire dairy is now gone. Like one day it was gone. It was a little shocking if you've been here for a while to know that was always so. The last one that we did send out, we've not heard any feedback on. So again, I come to you tonight for the approval of that proposal.
We'll open the floor for any questions or comments to Tommy or otherwise. Everyone remembers the previous presentation with area 36C? Okay, perfect. Thank you, Tommy. I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Jeremy. I will second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to item 8B, consideration of approval of revision number 2 to the fiscal year 2021 expenditure budget with Ms. Wendy Qualls.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the Governing Board, Superintendent Gunning. So in the public hearing, I presented information on the revised 2 expenditure budget. So if you have no other questions, if you would consider adopting the budget, please.
I have just one quick question for you, and it's just more information based. We had the public hearing tonight. We will approve this adoption or revision. Give you the timeline. There is one more in June. Is that correct? Where this will come back to us? Just explain to me again for the remainder of this year.
So
calendar
this
year.
is the final budget for the 2021 school year. In June, we will consider a proposed budget for the next school year.
Okay.
So this is the final one for the year that we are in.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying. I will open the floor for any questions or comments on the revision number 2 to the budget. No questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
All right, I will second that. There's no comments or questions. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Revision number 2 is approved.
Thank
Moving
you,
on to
Wendy.
8C, fiscal year 2022 capital plan.
Thank you,
And
Madam
Wendy?
President. So in preparation for our proposed budget, we had our capital committee meet and discuss the plans for next school year for our capital funds. At this point, the state has not approved the state budget, but we are anticipating that any cuts to capital will be fully restored next school year. So with that, we anticipate that the total budget will be approximately $17.5 million. 500,000 will be for textbooks and instructional aids and instructional software. 2 million for technology, equipment, and software. Facilities projects, about 8.6 million. That would not all be spent next year, but it is also a reserve for any major maintenance issues that we have in the next future years. For transportation, we have 5.6 million in school buses. We do still have some bond funding for school buses, but this is transportation's 5-year plan for bus replacements. And then we have just other miscellaneous expenditures for different departments. Do you have any questions?
Is the 8.6 million, is that a lot of that for the white tanks?
So the majority of the white tanks will actually come from bond funds.
Okay,
The
then
equipment.
what is this for?
So this would be for future costs that the school facilities board would not assist us with. So that could be future roof replacements. We know we have a couple roofs that will
Okay,
probably be
yeah.
about $1 million that the SFB will not assist us with. So it is for new air conditioners, things where the state will not assist us.
So those are capitalized rather than maintenance or expense?
Correct.
Okay.
They're capital item.
I do have a question. Previously, we had discussed as a board, I don't remember if it was in our board retreat or at some point, we were talking about curriculum and how our ELA curriculum is now rolling up to the middle school level and how they would need technology in order to do that. So I'm wondering if that one-to-one device plan that we had previously discussed, when that is to be rolled out and if that's still in the plans, and would that come from these capital funds here?
So it would come from the capital funds. Mrs. DeCoste.
Hey, Gina, thank you.
Good evening, President Clymer, members of the board. I can answer that for you. So when we were looking at one-to-one versus the rollout of the new curriculum for middle school for Wonders or well, Study Sync McGraw-Hill for ELA, we were kind of, balancing the pros and cons, and we decided that it would be better and more beneficial for all the students and for the teachers to be able to implement Study Sync with Fidelity in 6 through 8 if every ELA teacher has a laptop cart charged and ready in their room. So every kid goes to their ELA class, they have access to the laptop in there because there are a lot of powerful online tools with Study Sync. And so focusing on that full implementation this year, it's actually about the same number of computers as if we had done a one-to-one rollout for just for all kids, like all kids in 6th grade or 8th grade. We had decided for sure, we were thinking we'd start with 6 and then roll up. So by the time they went to 8th and then to high school, they would be ready. But we know that our ELA teachers are going to need that access in order to implement Study Sync with Fidelity. And we're able to provide that. And most of those laptop carts are already on the campuses, ready to go because of all the extra computers that we ended up with during COVID. So between the donations and the extra ones that we purchased, we have enough laptop carts to put in every 6th, 7th, and 8th grade ELA or reading and writing class for next school year for them to access.
Okay, so my follow-up question to that is, was the decision to do laptop carts versus one-to-one device based on resource availability, meaning budgetary or financial resources, or is that truly the best way to roll out this program?
It's kind of a couple different levers of things. Truly the best way to roll out the program and to make sure that they have access to everything that they need instead of having to get a cart for their class when they have the class and things like that. But secondly, also with rolling out one-to-one with the infrastructure around the schools, and if the kids have a one-on-one computer, we talked about, this, 7th grader has his computer, goes from class to class to class, but all of our teachers aren't ready for that yet. So really, we would be wasting some resources for the kids to have computers with them all day long, where we're not at that level. We don't have beyond textbooks on, so we don't have our teachers fully teaching a lot of online stuff. So that is the most bang for our buck and most beneficial for the kids to get them into those during ELA. But it doesn't take away from the rest of the school. So those computer carts in the ELA programs are in addition to the carts that they already have on the campus. So all the other teachers on the campus still have the same access to technology for students that they did before or do now.
Okay, so then is the long-term plan still at some point to go to one-to-one device technology for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade to better mirror what has happening at the high school level?
We will see when we get there. We have middle school looking kind of at some math curriculum. Our middle school teachers are wanting math curriculum. So we'll see where we go with that. And then we need to think about, just like I said, the infrastructure of the classrooms and the Wi-Fi and the kids carrying the computers around. And if they're not charged, some of our classrooms have 4 outlets. So we have some things that we really need to look at, that we want to take some time to look at and get a lot of feedback from teachers and what their readiness level is for that. So it's probably a year of studying and analyzing and getting our groups looking at it and then seeing where we're at to add to. Right now, we're at about 7,000 computers district-wide for our less than 10,000 students. So COVID, that's one good thing. COVID silver lining is we have a lot of technology now.
I was thinking the exact same thing. There's not a lot of silver linings to this pandemic and this massive sort of shift in our education environment, but I am thankful that at least for this curriculum, every student will have a computer at the ready every single day. And I do agree with Ms. Moran that in the future, I think it is the vision, right, that we can mirror at least the middle school level after we've done, the proper studying and talking with our staff. I think that is definitely the direction that we should be headed for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions about technology?
Anyone else have any other questions about that? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. DeCoste. Any other questions for Wendy on the capital plan overall? Okay, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the fiscal year 2022 capital plan as presented.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to 8D, consideration and possible adoption of a resolution providing for all matters relating to the sale and issuance of social improvement bonds of the district, including delegation to the superintendent and executive director of finance and business operations of the district to determine certain matters related thereto. Ooh, don't say that twice too fast.
Thank you for reading all of that, Madam President.
I'm trying to be thorough, make sure we all understand. I apologize. Wendy, go ahead.
No, you did a great job. So our voters approved in November of 2014 for the district to sell $35 million of bonds for various projects. To date, we have sold 28 million, so we have 7 million remaining. So what I'm asking for tonight is authorization to sell the last 7 million. There's a little difference in this process this time. Normally, we do what's considered a public sale, which means you generally have 20 to 25 investors bidding on the bonds. When we did a cost analysis, since this is 7 million, it's lower than we normally would issue. it is more cost beneficial to do what's considered a private sale. So we would be hiring a placement agent and they will get bids from 3 investors and then we will pick the best option for us of those 3.
Okay. I will open the floor for questions or comments.
What, just curious, what's the commission do these people get for selling your bonds?
You know, I don't have that exact amount, but it is based on a percentage. But then in addition to that, we incur legal costs that are set amounts. And so I don't have that amount, but generally our bonds sell for what is a premium. And that premium is what pays for the majority of the cost of the issuance. So normally we would still end up with around 7 million to spend because those costs will be covered by the premium.
I see. So your net cost is relatively insignificant, is what you're saying, because of the
Compared-
premium.
Compared to the total amount of the bond and the additional premium we generate.
Great. And just out of curiosity, what kind of interest rate are these bonds?
So the target is, well, we don't know because you're going to go out to these private investors, but they're thinking it'll come in below 2%
Around 2, did you say?
or below.
Or below? Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? I will just say thank you very much. I know this is a lot of paperwork and putting together this information, but I'm excited to see what the district is doing with these dollars and out at White Tank. So thank you very much for the effort put into it. I think this is going to make a very big difference in allowing the staff and students from that campus to thrive. So I appreciate it. I will open the floor for a motion.
Motion to approve.
I will second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Wendy, I think you're going to be with us for the long haul here. Consideration of possible adoption of a resolution for a 15% maintenance and operation budget override continuation election. Take it away, Wendy.
So this evening, if you are ready to, it is just the opportunity for you to call for the election. And just a reminder, once we call for the election, we cannot use district funds to promote or I would say promote the override. We can give factual information, but we cannot do any other polling studies or any other thing that would impact the election.
I will open the floor for comments. I think I'll start if that's okay. I want to say that the override, as I mentioned in the polling conversation earlier, these funds are critical to the success of this district. I think with teacher pay and nurses on campus and our extracurricular activities and our specials classes, I mean, the list goes on and on about what these funds cover. And if we didn't have these, I think we would be at a deficit to make up that difference, both academically and emotionally for our students. So I am fully supportive of calling for this election.
I agree. Wendy, can you remind me of the time frame? If we don't approve this tonight, do we have a later, what's the latest date that we can approve?
So next, your June meeting would be the latest date.
Okay. Are there any activities that you would recommend that we need to do as a district before we would call the election? And I'm asking that based on the statement that you made earlier, which is once we call it, we can't use any district funds anymore. So is there any reason that you could see that we should delay this potential approval?
No, since once you call for the election, the continue the quality will take over for that type of information. Employees could still go out and speak on behalf of it outside of their work time representing their own person. So I don't really see any other expense that the district would incur that we need to delay this for.
Okay. The other thing I would like to say, just as a matter of supporting facts in our district, is in case you're not aware, when we increased when the community approved the increase to go from the 10% override to the 15% override, all 5% of that increase went directly to salaries of our teachers and staff, or actually just teachers, and then it kind of gets allocated a little bit. So I echo what Board President Clymer has said, in that 5% of this override is extremely critical to go directly to teacher salaries, as well as the other percentage of supports the programs that Mr. Benz presented earlier.
Any other comments, questions, or thoughts? Okay. I will call for a motion.
I motion to call for the election. Is that what I need to say?
I will second that. There's no more discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. We appreciate it. Item 8F, consider and possibly approve new date for board retreat scheduled for July 23rd. I'm going to present this item. This is just more administration, but we need to all be in the same room to do this. So that's why we have to do it at a regular meeting. My apologies for those in the audience. We currently have a board retreat planned for June 25th. That is a board self-evaluation. There's many things that happen on that day. This was a secondary date on July 23rd. We now have 3 or more members that are unable to make that date. So what my suggestion would be here is that we cancel this date for now. We carry forward with the June 25th date, and then at that time, we can decide if we need additional time for a board retreat, or if there's any additional information that needs to be presented or that we need to work through. So for now, canceling it, and then when we come to June, deciding if we need something else in the future months.
I'm sorry, I'm confused. Can you say that again? I'm sorry.
Yes, I apologize. I'll make it less wordy. We currently have a board retreat scheduled for June 25th. We had a second retreat date planned for July 23rd. We have conflicts with multiple board members on July 23rd, and Superintendent Gunning, I believe, as well. So it is in the best interest of our board to make everyone available for that same date to get the most out of those hours together. So I am proposing that we cancel the meeting on July 23rd for now. And once we have the June 25th meeting, we will be able to determine if we need to reschedule it, and if so, what appropriate date would happen at that point. Was that better? I'm sorry. it was
Yes,
really
I
wordy
was
the first time.
confusing the June and July dates because it's the 25th and then 23rd, and I was just confused. So that was my bad.
Okay.
Thank you for the clarification.
Absolutely. So I guess that the recommendation would be to cancel the July 23rd meeting until further notice. So I will open the floor for comments or questions, or entertain a motion for that.
I motion to cancel the July 23rd retreat.
I will second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it. 8G, submission of proposed issues for consideration for the 2022 Arizona School Board Association political agenda. This is something that we are able to do every year. So you'll see in board docs, there is a list that the Arizona School Board Association provides to us as school districts that says, what issues would you like us to consider and take up during the legislative cycle in 2022? As a board, we can move to approve 5 priorities with an additional 2 if we choose to be submitted for consideration. That is coupled with boards from around our state that are members of ASBA, and that becomes the legislative agenda of the ASBA membership moving forward. I will offer I will offer my 5 priorities, and then just as a recommendation, and then we'll open it to the floor. And if there's any additional ones, we can discuss that. The first 3 I will mention here are directly from our priorities last year, and then 2 new ones that I'm proposing. The first is to revise the school finance formula to provide a stable, dedicated revenue source, less reliant on the general fund or annual legislation appropriation. Number 2, reform current year funding to a system that provides districts with appropriate, stable annual budgeting ability and technical reliability. Number 3, eliminate unfunded mandates and administrative burdens. These 2 would be new to us this year if we move forward. Number 4, support policy that recognizes, respects, and promotes teaching as a profession. And number 5, equitably invest in technology and reliable internet access for all students. So I will open the floor to discussing those priorities or moving forward with approval or rearranging and revising.
I will go ahead and go. So I also had in my list the support policy that recognizes, respects, and promotes teaching as a profession. So I would agree with that being added to our items of support. The other item I have, which seems to make sense with the fact that we just called an override election, is to change the override budget increase language to better reflect what voters are being asked to support. The language is very confusing, and every time we have an override, which we know is every 4 to 5 years, the same topic comes up again and again. So it would be nice if they could fix that at the state level once and for all. But I'm open to options.
Do you mind reading that to me? I'm just trying to find it on the list to make sure I get it correctly.
The one on the override, it says change override / budget increase language to better reflect what voters are being asked to support. It's under the preserve and strengthen local control.
Okay.
Yes.
I see that here.
Although I like the technology suggestion that you had as well.
Okay. Any other comments on the 5? Again, we can have 5 priorities and 2, let me see what they're called. And 2 additional priorities. So basically 7. So we can include, I just said 5, so we can include that as well if the board agrees. Does anyone else have any other suggestions that we might consider? With that, I would suggest then, because there's only 6 here that have been mentioned and no one has any others, that we would just make a motion to, I will make a motion to approve the political agenda recommendations as the 5 that I originally presented, plus the language that says change override budget increase language to better reflect what voters are being asked to support.
I will second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. As a side note, Amy, I will work on the submission form and get that to you for ASBA. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. We are moving right along. 9A, discussion of revisions to walk boundary for 21-22 school year. And first reading of revisions to governing board policy EEAA, walkers and riders. Tommy, you're back with us. Thank you.
I feel as popular as Wendy Qualls tonight being up here.
Well, you're going to be even more popular after you give us this good news right here. So go ahead.
Good evening again, President Clymer, members, Governing Board, Superintendent Gunning. In September of this year, I came before you as a representative of transportation asking for some help with everything going on with the pandemic and coming back to school. We were short employees for the year. When we were coming back in person, it was exciting, but at the same time, it became a struggle for my department being so short employees. I came and asked you to please revise our walk boundary from 1 mile to 2 miles to help us accommodate and get students to school. As part of that, my department made a conscious effort to accommodate parents that live more than 1 but less than 2 miles on the bus. And we were able to accommodate everyone that asked for that at the time. When we went back to virtual learning, busing stopped, of course, except for our Safe Place students. Then we came back in February. We came back full on, more students riding than what we were seeing in the beginning of the school year. And since then, we've been busing all students that live 1 or more miles from campuses. So tonight I come to you with information asking that we revise Governing Board Policy EEAA on walkers and riders back to its original to 1.0 miles for the 21-22 school year. And again, our timeline would be presenting tonight for the proposal. I will be back next month asking for the approval at the board meeting.
Thank you very much. I will open the floor for comments or questions, or potentially just cheering for Tommy.
This makes me so happy. We all know I was the most upset probably about the last change. So this makes me very, very happy. Thank you. Thank you for fixing this.
It was not the easiest decision to come before you guys in September. It was what we needed to get by at the time. And I was extremely happy that we were able to accommodate those parents that did call, and so grateful to parents that drove their own children to and from school during that time. And then when there was an emergency, they would call. We were able to accommodate as much as possible. And we told no one no at the time, which was great. So it was nice to be able to meet with Megan and say, hey, I think it's time we can bring this back for next school year. And we're already doing it right now. So.
And I know you didn't want to do this. I know it was very hard for you too. I just am very, very happy. Hallelujah.
I would agree. I think, you told me very early on in being involved in the district and being a board member that the school day starts at the bus stop, not at the moment that they walk on the campus. And that has stuck with me for 6 years now. And it makes me so happy that now we're going to be able to create that amazing start to kids' school day for anyone who wants it. That's within a mile of our schools. And I think that's just part of the day that we can have more positive impact on our students. And I know that you have worked tirelessly with your staff to create that environment, whether they're on a bus or in transit or anywhere else. So I am extremely excited and proud of you guys for the work that you've done. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is just information only. So we'll take any questions or comments other than these. And Tommy, we will see you back next month for the approval, hopefully.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Okay, 9B, superintendent goal update, our student engagement survey results with Superintendent Gunning.
I almost said good morning, but I must have.
We haven't been there that long.
I know, right? Good evening, Madam President, members of the governing board. Wanted to present to you our student engagement survey results. Again, these are consistent surveys that we do every year that measure the satisfaction of our employees, which you've seen in the past. And now we will share with you our student engagement results. Next slide. And this aligns directly to everything that we do within our strategic plan, along with not only aligning to our strategic plan, but from there, as you may recall, is created a scorecard that my goals are aligned to. From there, a scorecard is then also created at the school level, and we'll share a little bit more about that in a few slides. It's all about the continuous improvement. So it's trying to find the root cause. So looking at the results, rolling out for input, and in a student survey component, you're rolling out to not only your staff, but you're also rolling it out to children for their input. Then you design an action plan, some strategies that will be included in their scorecard, and then you start the cycle again as you continuously monitor and see where you can make improvements. The purpose is to be transparent in our communication and process with our leaders, to share their data with all their stakeholders, identify priority actions, and communicate their next steps. This was something that was very instrumental in our improvement of our district. And as you have seen in our survey results over the last few years, a transformation in the process and in the involvement of the various stakeholders in being a part of our improvement process. So we roll them out to gather input, and we also want to gather clarity. That's very important. You don't want to assume that you know what is wrong and apply a strategy and then that doesn't work. You want to involve all your stakeholders so that you apply the appropriate strategy for the deed that you have identified. The communication process includes collective analysis of the data, and then everyone is a part of developing those next steps. Here are some sample questions that are included in the survey. Learning is important at my school. I enjoy our specials. My teacher cares about me. I feel safe in my school. School rules are fair. My school is clean. My principal is a good leader. So it has a lot of various all-encompassing pieces, and a lot that can relate and tie directly back to our social emotional learning and the connectedness that our children are feeling in our schools. Here are our scores over the last 3 years. So as you can see in 2018, 2019, we had an overall mean of 4.10 with a top box of 33%. Last year, we had a mean of 3.77 with 36%. And this year, we were anticipating kind of being a little bit down, but we were very excited that we were up during COVID and jumped to a 4.0 with a 38% top box. And that was due to the hard work of all of our teachers and our principals and the leaders of making sure their children felt connected during the time of the pandemic. From here, each school will analyze their overall goal. So if I was looking at that goal for us as a district, I would look at those boxes, and I know they're kind of hard to see, but I'm up towards the top in my scores. I'm falling between a 4.0 and a 4.25 or 4.29. So my overall increase and the goal I'm trying to achieve for next year would be a 0.05 increase. Or we could also choose to raise that top box. Here are some of our top scoring items. My principal is a good leader, which is awesome. My teacher cares about me, which we know is so important. And we see that, I believe, is a direct impact of all of their hard work and their strategies and skills that they have learned within conscious discipline. And learning is important at my school. And you can see those top box percentages are very high. Some of the lowest scoring items would be students are nice to each other at my school. I like going to my school each day, and I set learning goals and track my progress. So when you're looking at those both set of items, on the ones that are scoring high, you want to validate why you believe you scored so high, because you want to keep doing those things. In the areas that you're scoring low, you're going to want to identify what would a 5 look like so that you could shoot towards that direction. And at this time, I'm going to let Principal Naylor come up and just share with you an actual experience of what she does as a principal.
Governing board and community. I'm going to be representing our principal team, just discussing kind of how we translate our student information and data into action steps for our campus. It's pretty similar to how we do it with our employee data as well as with our parent data, except that of course we want to involve our student body so that we can get some student ownership in the changes that we're making on our campus. So as Superintendent Gunning discussed, we get our data, and the first thing that we do is we harvest our wins and we celebrate the things that we did a great job with. We do that with our staff, but then we also do that with student leadership groups, whether that might be your NEHS or it may be your student council. Some schools may use their older leader classrooms in 5th grade. And we just celebrate the things that are going great on our campus. And we also celebrate, we also talk about some of the areas that we can improve and find growth. And we involve our students in that process to determine what we can do to make it better. So for example, Superintendent Gunning shared some of the strengths on our campus. And then we may have one that says, you know, my campus is clean. So then the student leadership team or whatever body you're using looks at that and comes up with some ideas for improvement. So for example, maybe meeting with the custodian to discuss ways they can support their role, potentially like doing some kind of a marketing campaign on the video announcements to show kids how to make sure their paper towels get in the trash can and why we have ownership over that. It's led by students. It may be having a committee from student council that runs a cleanup club. And so they get to see that data change and have some ownership over what the outcomes might be. And we just find that, you know, it's been a really powerful tool for our kids. COVID kind of threw a little wrench in some of those things when we're trying to do a cleanup club online, but we really believe that this is going to be an awesome way for our kids to feel that empowerment of not only taking on some of that responsibility, but also changing the perception of the students on campus through that communication as well. Any questions about that?
I don't have any questions, but that is awesome, no matter what age student you have. I mean, obviously, you know, at the high school level, they have more options to engage students and things like this, but I love to hear that at all levels, we are allowing the students to take ownership of, you know, part of their school family and their school community. And it's amazing that you're finding ways to do that. So thank you.
Yeah, I think it also gives us some opportunities for student councils and student groups to be doing something that truly matters, that's valid work, that's not just kind of give them an assignment, make some posters, but to really be doing something that they see the data change and they have the opportunity to give input and to see impact. So
Yeah, I think that's the key, right? Seeing things change, whether it goes up or down based on their hard work. I think that's crucial. So thank you. Any other comments from Mrs. Naylor?
No, thank you very much. And I'm so happy that you came back from Italy and doing what you're doing.
me too. Thank you.
Yeah, I really missed you when you were gone.
Okay, are you going to do your report from up here?
Oh, I'm sorry. I had one follow-up question on this student survey. Sorry, I thought we were just dismissing Principal Naylor. I see in this information that we had 4,823 students participate in this survey in 2021. I saw some data somewhere, and it might have been in the Friday update about total participation. Do you know off the top of your head what participation numbers were last year and if this is an increase from last year?
Would have to look it up.
Okay. My follow-up question to that is also, it seemed as though there were some schools that had very little or no participation. Do you know why that would have been? Was there some sort of technology glitch or the information just wasn't disseminated?
I would have to double check. I know that
Okay.
this year we had more consistent participation at all of our schools. I know last year that we did have a glitch with one campus. And then I know the year prior to that, we had really low participation. It was our first year.
Yeah.
So I would have to double check though to see on the total numbers. I don't know them off the top of my head.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we'll let you go back up. We're going to move on. If you want to go back to your seat with your notes. We'll move on now to number 10 on our agenda, the reports. And our first one is from Superintendent Gunning. We'll roll right into our governing board reports right after that.
Madam President, members of the governing board, we wanted to first kick off and celebrate all of our retirees, which hopefully you'll be able to join us this Thursday as we celebrate our retirees and then also celebrate our Pride Award winners. With that being said, we have a huge shout out and thank you to our LESD Foundation. They participated in a golf tournament where they raised over $22,000 for our Pride Awards. And I will keep the secret tight for like 2 more days, but they raised our Pride Award awards by quite a bit. So I'm really excited. I can't wait to see when they open their envelope and see the money that they received in celebrating them. Also, over the last 5 weeks, we've been doing our community chats, and we've had over 47 participants. And I've personally done 2 individual meetings in addition to that, and then been working on evaluations and conducted 14 evaluations so far. And I still have about 7 more to go. So kind of it's our time to actually celebrate at the end of the year. And it's been very healing for me as living through a pandemic to see all the amazing things that our schools and our leaders have achieved and our teachers, and looking at all of the things that came out that were positive. Like we talked earlier about all of the laptops and technology access that our children have, the creation of our DLA program. And also this year, I know it was a long time ago and many of us might have forgot, but we had 2 A+ winners this year in the middle of a pandemic, which is Dreaming Summit and Western Sky. I'm very excited for those schools. Getting ready, of course, to look at our override and start that process. And in thinking of that, please make sure to reach out to your school nurses, as tomorrow is National School Nurse Day. So just a lot of great things to celebrate, and can't wait to celebrate our employees on Thursday.
Wonderful, thank you. Jeremy, we will roll right over to you. Anything for your board report this time?
I wanted to just give a little report. I'm kind of the guy that handles the public, or, is a conduit to what the public wants. But actually, I just have something that I'm kind of moved. It was actually a lot of teachers contacted me, and they feel safe contacting me. And when I've spent hours and hours on the phone after this person decided that they felt safe, that I wasn't going to reveal, and a lot of them feel very intimidated. But I do have and no organization is perfect, and there are people that are unhappy, but as I say, I get a lot of feedback from teachers, but one of them, I'm just gonna just cut to a few things that just is really the biggest thing is this person, and these are people who've been teaching many years, they've had kids go through the system, whatever. But one of them is really talking about the downside of conscious discipline. I was a big fan of it at first until I kind of hear what's going on. But the problem is that kids are not being held accountable. And that's one of the problems where we say, well, it's disproportionate, we have less discipline, actually maybe need more. And in this case, a kid was really disrespectful and whatever, and he was taken out. And it's sort of a fun time for them to be taken out. And other kids are going, well, why are they being, rewarded, and the kids are doing good and doing the work or are kind of suffering. And the result of it is that a lot of kids, my classroom's full of students who care less about completing their work. There's no incentive for good grades or good behavior, only rewards for substandard behavior. I've even been asked to change a student's grades to please his parents. I think you got the gist of that. I'll maybe go on. A lot of it has to do with the curriculum. This person says Wonders is really a wonderful program. It's a great piece of curriculum. However, and I don't know much about it, but I guess there's the fundamentals and there's I read this all, kind of got it highlighted, but what this teacher specifically says is that they're being directed by the administration somehow to focus a lot on part of it, and then that leaves very little time to do the things that seem to be the good parts of the Wonders. And they said a lot of, I call it getting blisters, patting yourself on the back. There's a lot of, this district dances around a fire pit singing songs about unity and family, but our teachers are tired, our students are getting away without any consequences for their actions. Last few years, I've seen students fighting, not sent home. Students throw desks and chairs, not sent home. A person will talk with them and they're sent back in the classroom. Well, they will throw the next fit and the cycle will begin again. Talk back, not what they got. And the problem is that, discipline, we're all subject to, I'm subject. You get up in the morning, you got to do the right thing. And somehow putting in some paradigm that says, well, we got to change the discipline and we got to make it more equitable and whatever. Real life, there's a discipline called reality, and you suffer the consequences of what happens. And so are we really helping kids out by pretending we're, psychological engineers or whatever? And so that's just, I'm going to cut it real short. That's just what I'm reporting. And I've heard that from a lot of teachers.
Thank you, Jeremy. Dr. Armstead?
Yes, first of all, I want to give a shout out to Dreaming Summit in Rancho Santa Fe. I had the opportunity to go tour those two schools. I did not realize I was in walking distance to one of those schools. So it was fun to go see the students, see them actually thriving from having that social connection, even though they've lived through this pandemic and quarantine. Apart from visiting those schools, I have been doing a lot of reading myself. I don't want to sit up here and give opinion. So I've been looking at a lot of things across the nation, what different schools are doing, different districts are doing. And I will say that although I am still in the field, even if you are not a teacher yourself, please continue to have faith in us as teachers, because across this nation right now, we are doing a lot more work than is seen. So do not feel that you're not appreciated, because from one educator to an educator, I appreciate you, I see you. Lastly, I've worked with President Clymer
in dealing with the next steps with serving the community. I am a big advocate of getting feedback from trying to involve everybody in this process. I have received communication from the community saying that we are developing a survey to be manipulative and get a certain response back. That is not what we're doing. We have been looking at the questions, seeking a third party to ensure that it is clear, it is transparent, it is not biased, because we want to do the best that we can moving forward. Apart from that, I have been counting down the days as an educator because I really need a summer vacation right now.
Amen to that. This is Moran.
Yes, for my board report this evening, I will go through the list of things that I've been doing to fulfill my duties as a governing board member. So I attended the ASBA webinar on superintendent evaluations, which we do have coming up here next month, as well as a 3-day equity event that was excellent. It focused on practical and applicable examples from other districts in our state who are ahead of Litchfield in this work and seeing positive results. So I'm excited to continue this important work towards equity. I also participated in the Litchfield Elementary School District Educational Foundation Golf Tournament that was put on. And as Superintendent Gunning stated, this program helps to raise funds for our Pride Awards. And I put in here that those awards are $150 per recipient, and of course accompanied by unlimited pride of winning the award. But now I'm so excited that we're going to actually be able to give more money. So that is amazing. Also helped by the stock market doing really well because we have some money in an endowment for those awards. So that's awesome. Congrats to all the Pride Award winners, and I cannot wait to be there to celebrate with you all in person on Thursday evening. I did attend the special meeting and study session of the governing board, as well as I participated in community with the Litchfield Park Historical Society bike scavenger hunt event that was held here. It started at the gazebo out in our parking lot out here. It helped to raise money for the Litchfield Park Historical Society by riding bikes around Litchfield Park to learn facts and history about our area. Not only was it fun, but it was also very informative. And I look forward to the new campus of the Litchfield Park Historical Society that will allow our students to go on field trips there when it's complete to learn more about our local history. I also had multiple chats with Superintendent Gunning, as always. And as the school year wraps up, I'd like to give a special shout out and thank you to all of our teachers and administrators for their unwavering dedication to our students. The final thing that I've been doing as a board member this month, which has been the most time consuming, is sifting through information that's floating around the community to disseminate what is true and what is not true. There's been a lot of misinformation spread through media and otherwise about the work we are doing toward equitable opportunities and inclusion. The misinformation, false conclusions, and assumptions have contributed to confusion, misunderstandings, and division. In an effort to prevent facts, I'd like to clarify 4 main points of misinformation that I've seen repeatedly. The first misstatement is that LESD has adopted the equity statement illegally or in secret. This is not true. The equity statement was discussed in detail during study sessions on October 20th, 2020 and December 1st, 2020, before being presented, discussed, and adopted during the December 8th, 2020 governing board meeting. The equity statement in its entirety was posted in the agenda of that meeting and was available, including the definitions, to any member of the public who wished to view it prior to the adoption. All of these meetings were live streamed and available to view now on YouTube at your convenience. Discussing and adopting guidance for the district in multiple open meetings is well within the role and duty of the governing board. The equity statement, which is the governing board responsibility, as President Clymer stated earlier, and the underlying work, which is the district's responsibility, have been and continue to be carried out with complete adherence to all applicable laws, policies, and procedures. The second statement of misinformation that I would like to address is that Litchfield Elementary School District plans to incorporate critical race theory into curriculum. This is not true. The equity statement supports inclusive instruction, and the underlying district actions support developing a diverse and inclusive curriculum, which means ensuring different viewpoints and cultures are represented in classroom stories, problems, etc. Diverse and inclusive curriculum does not constitute critical race theory. The third statement of misinformation is that Litchfield Elementary School District examining discipline or achievement data by demographic is racist and or inappropriate. This is not true. In order to analyze and dig into data, it must be divided and broken down by different aspects: classroom, race, ethnicity, grade, gender, school, English language learners, special education, etc. Each of these various data points provide insight into where the gaps and opportunities to improve exist. We saw two examples of this evening, one coming from the presentation from Mr. Bentz that broke down our polling information into demographic data, as well as the presentation on the student survey results that shows that our principals do use that data broken down in order to solve problems. Our district and governing board divides and analyzes data using a variety of demographics, which is both appropriate and necessary to utilize information. The final point that I would like to provide correct information on is that Litchfield Elementary School District isn't listening or hearing my voice. This is not true. Governing board members read every email that is written to us, as well as feedback from the community chats and hear public comment at our meetings. We welcome factual information shared to increase our knowledge, as well as thoughts and opinions to increase our understanding of your viewpoint. We are hearing and listening to feedback in support and opposition and everywhere in between. As our governing board norms state, we have agreed to, and I quote, render decisions based on available facts and independent judgment, and refuse to surrender that judgment to individuals or special interest groups. As governing board members, we have the right to agree to disagree with your opinion or stance. It is impossible to support all opinions when those opinions are contradictory. Not agreeing with you does not mean we aren't listening. For additional clarity, I'd like to provide a real-life example of how equity has been applied and positively impacted student success in our district. This example also shows that equity does not necessarily directly or indirectly apply to any particular population, including race or ethnicity. When COVID hit and schools were suddenly closed to in-person learning, students were expected to quickly shift to remote learning. What does a student need for online learning? They need two things, a device and a connection. Many students in our district, fortunately, already had exactly what they needed at home to pivot and immediately begin remote learning. While other students didn't have a device, didn't have a connection, or didn't have either one. To provide an equal, same solution would mean that we as a district would issue every student a device and a connection. We didn't have the equipment on hand or budget to accomplish that, and it would have been a waste of taxpayer dollars since it wasn't needed. To provide an equitable solution, we determined who didn't already have a device or a connection and filled in the gaps based on need. This equitable solution took time, trial and error, communication, innovative ideas, and collaboration between our principals, teachers, parents, students, technology department, and community. They all worked together beautifully so that students could access remote learning. This is one example of how equitable solutions can be found and applied to ensure every child has the same opportunity to learn and succeed. I'd like to close in my usual tradition. Tonight, I'm going to feature lyrics from the song Truth to Power by One Republic. Minutes turn to hours, hours turn to years, and I've seen truth turn to power. Thank you.
Could I just ask a question about the ASBA seminar that you went to?
Jeremy, it's not appropriate. It's not a discussion time.
Okay.
It's board reports.
So this has been quite the eventful month. I feel like we're never not gonna have a quite eventful month here apparently again. I attended several meetings and study sessions. We had an executive session this past month. I also attended the equity study session, which was insightful. I attended the equity conference as well that Ms. Moran talked about. And for me, I feel like we need to address that because there's been a lot of discussion about this equity conference that happened and feedback. And for me, there were some things that didn't really hit home for me. There was things that was a little much for me at this conference. And I was able to take what I needed to learn from it and put aside the things that weren't helpful to me. And so I would hope that the community would understand that when we attend conferences, sometimes there's speakers that just don't speak to you. And that's okay. That doesn't make me a bad person because I attended a conference with somebody that their words didn't speak to me. It also doesn't necessarily make that person a bad person because we don't have the exact same beliefs. At the equity conference, though, there was a session that was really important to me that was taught by Nikki Whaley, who has done some training for us from ASBA on inclusion versus engagement in the community and why it's so important to not just be inclusive of your community, but to really engage the community in this equity work that's happening and how we need to have these two-way conversations with our community and make sure that we are working to be on the same page in order to really be able to address the issues that we are finding with the data that we have. And so that really spoke to me because I feel like that's one of the things I'm proud that we're doing right now, that Superintendent Gunning is having these community chats and we're really getting feedback and we're able to make changes to the work that's being done based on the feedback that we're receiving from our whole community. It is not about going out and getting feedback just from the people who agree with us. It's about getting feedback from everyone. So I think that's really important for us as a board as we move forward, is that we have to be willing to ask questions that we might not like the answers to. And that means all of us up here. And some of us, I think, are okay with that and we're good with that. And there might be someone that's not. But I will continue to be open to listening to anybody with their feedback. I read every email and I definitely take into consideration everything that is said in the emails because I think they're all coming from, they believe that's coming from a good place. I think that most of us want the same things for our kids at the end of the day. We just might not agree on how to get there, but I think that if we can have those conversations, we can find a way to get there together. I also had several conversations with Superintendent Gunning. She is always good at answering my calls whenever I call to answer whatever questions I have. I too got to attend the golf tournament that was put on by the foundation where they did raise lots of money. And I was going to say how much, but I wasn't sure if I was allowed to. So I'm glad you said no, but I'm really, really excited because I sit as the board liaison for the foundation as well. So I go to their meetings and I was able to go to their meeting that they just had last week and was super excited to hear how much money we're going to give our teachers. I can't wait to see their faces on Thursday. I also, last week, nobody's mentioned this yet, was Teacher Appreciation Week, which is my favorite week of the year. I miss being in PTA so much because I absolutely love getting to spoil the heck out of our teachers. Teachers that have had me at their schools know I just love to do that. And I think it's important that we, especially this year, we need to show our teachers how much we appreciate them. It's important to show support for our teachers because our teachers are the ones on the front lines with our students every single day. This has been the most challenging year for our teachers, but it's been the most challenging year for our students. And our students would not be succeeding this year without our amazing staff that has been there to support them and make them feel safe and loved, no matter whether they're online, they're in a classroom, they're hybrid, whatever they've been, our teachers have knocked it out of the park. And so I was really excited to get to do fun teacher appreciation things. And I love that week. It's great. We should shower our teachers every day of the year, obviously, but it's a good time of the year to do that, especially to get to at the end of the year here. Lastly, there's been a lot of emails. And it recently came to our attention that another email was sent to our staff, to all of our staff, by a board member. And there have been lots of staff members that have reached out and said how uncomfortable they are with this happening. The block button is your friend. You do not have to read emails from people you don't want. And I don't think that any of you should feel like you are being bullied or intimidated by one person that's up here. They are one person. You guys are more than what they are putting out there. You need to remember that you are important and that we care about you. And one person on this board is one person. We as a board are 5 people, but we're not your boss. And so if you feel uncomfortable with stuff you're getting, I highly encourage you to go talk to your principal to see if that's the right path for you, but block is your friend. And lastly, I think that people need to stand up to bullies. And there are people that are trying to bully others in this community right now, and it's really unfortunate. But I don't cave to bullies, and I don't think our staff should either.
Thank you. Well, this is the bad part about going last, is that Melissa, going after Melissa, especially, you always one-up me on the teachers. It was first on my list this time to say a sincere thank you to all of our teachers and our staff and our principal and our leaders, everyone in celebration of Teacher Appreciation last week. Obviously, your hard work and dedication knows no bounds and is second to none. And I am proud to call you a colleague here at LASD, so thank you. I also attended the golf tournament. I attempted to play golf. I putt really well. My drive needs some work. But I'm most proud that we raised over $20,000 for teachers and supporting the people that do the hard work in this district. So, and also, we're talking about a lot about the Pride Award winners. And I just want to remind everyone that Stevie right here, our very own IT professional, is a Pride Award winner. So thank you, Stevie. And no, do not ask us how much money you're getting, because you're going to have to wait on Thursday and see. Just like everybody else. Also, I had the ability to attend a data center and technology tour with Brad Cruz. Thank you so much. And your network administrator, Jean. It was really great to really just sit down and talk about what our current needs are in technology, what our future needs are going to be in technology. He made it really easy for me to understand servers and routers and all of the things that might not be in my wheelhouse traditionally, but really understanding not only just how important connectivity is, but the investment that needs to be made across the district in order to keep all of our sort of mandates up here alive. So that is really important. We're facing obviously some challenges in technology, retaining and hiring technology professionals. I think it's pretty obvious we don't have the budget of other large technology centers in this state and other places. And so really finding those dedicated individuals that are really to commit to our district and the passion and the vision that we have here and bring their expertise is really needed. So anyway, thank you, Brad, for that tour. It was really educational. I appreciate your time. Also, as others mentioned, we had 2 governing board meetings, 1 executive session for some legal counsel on the land lease, and the second for our next steps in the equity statement and our community engagement. As Dr. Armstead mentioned, her and I were tasked with discussing ways to engage our community and our stakeholders, that is community members, parents, staff, and even potentially students along the way. We were tasked with this to get together. We did that last week. Thank you for your time, Tara. But I did want to address some misinformation that was recently released to community members via email. I think someone else mentioned this, Tara maybe did. We have not hired a DEI advocacy organization to conduct our surveys. That's simply untrue. We are interested in partnering with a third-party researcher who may be able to help us ensure that we have fair and unbiased questions that are asked, and that we do it in a way that will give us back clean data that we can actually use. That is not one-sided, that is not asking questions that we want answers to. We want real information. We want accurate data about not only what our parents and community members think, but what those proper next steps will be. And in order for us to do that, we need the space and the liberty to interact with consultants and other people that might help us get there. Because as someone mentioned, one of our speakers earlier, we are not experts at everything. We are community members just like you, and we take your considerations seriously. And in order to do that, we are going to bring in professionals that we feel like can help us. And that is our right. And I think we will continue to do that as long as those resources are available to us. I also, like most others here, had the privilege of meeting one-on-one, talking on the phone, exchanging emails with some of our constituents concerning the equity statement and other topics. I will say that, I like others here, I do not have time to sit down one-on-one with every single community member, although I wish I did, because the ones that I do get to sit down with, whether we see eye to eye or whether we come at it from different angles, I learn something every single time I walk away from that interaction. It is my mission that we are going to repair our relationships and build trust, again, amongst our community. And if it takes us doing it one person at a time, that's what we're going to do. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm committed to doing that. So thank you for those that reached out to me. Please continue to do so. I will meet with folks as my schedule allows, but thank you for being willing to sit down and have an open and honest dialogue with me. It's appreciated. One last thing I wanted to address, and then we will adjourn. Thank you for sticking around, everyone that is still here. While we have board approved specific communication protocols in place, there have been multiple non-sanctioned emails over the past weeks that have gone out to our LASD staff members from a member of our board. I want to make sure that every staff member knows that you are under no obligation to respond or otherwise participate in any unofficial communication from board members. I feel like it's inappropriate and it's unprofessional. If you ever have any questions about this or other what could be official communication from the board, please reach out directly to me or Superintendent Gunning, and we will provide you with the facts. And I think I will leave that there. Last on our agenda is the reports from administrators. Thank you to those of you who put those together for us. They're very insightful and important, and we do read them, so thank you very much. We won't comment on those tonight other than that to say thank you, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
I will second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.